Chapter 208. Wuming landed beside Wanli Gu Yoli and Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard. He raised his hand gently and countless golden chains shot out of the golden ripples in the void, trapping the apes one by one. Lord Wuming, what are the Golgothas and David's language spirits that you mentioned? Wanli Gu Yoli might have the title of the highest level witch, but she was a newbie in magic, so she didn't know much about the highest level magic. They are the highest level language spirits in magic, the Golgothas and David's language spirits. Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard, who had been living in seclusion in the mountains all year round, spoke up. After all, Hui Na was only cultivating in seclusion and wasn't isolated from the world, so she still knew about magic. That's right. The Golgotha's language spirit is the highest level magic. It's a language spirit with a strong curse effect. It's a hymn known as the Song of Calamity that Christ sang with all his might before his death on the Golgotha's execution ground. It's said that ordinary people with weaker bodies will die instantly if they approach it. It's a language spirit that can bestow hatred and despair on the sword. The spirit of David's words, on the other hand, is the Song of the Bow. If the spirit of Golgotha that Erica uses is the spirit of hatred and despair, then the spirit of David's words is the spirit of sorrow that seeps into one's heart. It is the lament of the undead in the picture. It is also one of the magic spells of the highest level. Wuming looked at Erica and Liliana, who were working together to repel the pig-headed men. Most importantly, these two language spirits have the effect of harming God. Harming God. Wanli Gu Yoli covered her mouth in astonishment. Don't be so surprised. Humans are such mystical creatures. It's not surprising that they can invent magic that harms God. Wuming couldn't help but chuckle at Yoli's reaction. Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard added. Besides, your majesty forgot to mention that these two language spirits are very difficult to master. In history, only some great beings have mastered these two language spirits. Wuming also nodded. That's right. Both of these language spirits are magic spells that place a considerable burden on the body. If one is not careful, one's magic power will be sucked dry and one will die. Speaking of this, Wuming looked at Erica and Liliana with appreciation. Wuming estimated that even in Skahar's eyes, the two girls were quite excellent. At least Skahar could teach them to be on par with Cuculin. Hui Na, go help Erica and Liliana. No problem, your majesty. Hui Na smiled virtuously and ran towards the pork man with the black sky cloud sword. I feel like that sword is afraid of me. Wuming mumbled. Lord Wuming, what did you say? Yuli had a puzzled look on his face. It's nothing. By the way, these two are Sun Wukong's subordinate gods, Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, right? Wuming asked Yuli. That's right. After you trapped the great sage equaling heavens in your inherent barrier, another great sage equaling heavens appeared and attacked us. It seemed that Wanli Gu Yoli was not used to the term inherent barrier. However, to be honest, there seemed to be no such thing in this world. Then, when Miss Erica, Miss Liliana, and Huina were unable to resist, Lord Neza, who claimed to be your authority, saved us. After Wanli Gu Yoli finished his narration, Wuming understood the cause and effect. After Sun Wukong escaped from the cage, he used the doppelganger technique in the sky. His original purpose was to let his doppelganger restrain Wu Ming while he went to find an earth vein to replenish his strength. However, he found that Wu Ming and Sun Wukong's doppelganger had entered the barrier. Therefore, he wanted to attack Erica and the others with the thought that one less enemy would be one less enemy. But in the end, Neza did not appear. Wuming did not expect that he would obtain authority similar to a familiar after killing Neza. However, when he recalled Neza's rolling eyes before he was killed by Wuming, Wuming understood. After all, Neza appeared because he wanted to have fun and was attracted by Wuming's dragon and snake attributes. Therefore, in order to continue having fun on the earth, Neza gave Wuming the authority to summon himself. The god of disobedience had the ability to control and bestow authority to the person who killed them. Due to the issue of their dignity and personality, they would normally not bestow any useless authority to the god slayer. However, the authority that Luo Hao obtained that allowed the technology around her to rapidly develop was purely because Luo Hao had killed Saturnus. Saturnus was a god of harvest. It seemed that because he knew that his clone could not hold Wuming for a long time, he directly summoned Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing as his subordinate gods to resist Neza, Erica, and the others. He went to a spiritual mountain not far from Riguang Mountain and began to replenish his magical power. After all, Sun Wuming was a spiritual stone which had a fate with the earth. It could be said that he was the steel that protected the dragon and snake, so he could also draw power from the earth. In this way, Neza, who was weakened because of his authority, faced Sha Wujing, who was weakened because he became Sun Wuming's subordinate god. Erika and Liliana faced Zhu Ganglai, who was also weakened because he became Sun Wuming's subordinate god. As for Wanli Gu Yoli and Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard, they were protected by Hui Na because Yoli did not know how to fight. As for those 2-meter-tall apes, they were ordinary humans under the Sunshine Mountain transformed by Sun Wukong's influence. Logically speaking, as long as the god of followers was not defeated, the target would recover. This was also the reason why Hui Na only repelled them and did not kill them. I see, Xiaoen, can you restore them? Wuming asked. The golden chain wrapped around the apes made a sound. No problem, Wuming-sama. Wanli Gu Yoli was obviously taken aback. Then the golden chain emitted a ray of light, so the entangled apes stopped struggling and all of them turned into humans. Then Wuming instructed Enkidu to transport all these humans to a flat area. Then Wuming looked at Wanli Gu Yoli, took off the dragon horn on his head and handed it to her. Take Kalas with you first. If there is any danger, Kalas will protect you. Even if Kalas did not have the slightest offensive ability, Kalas had a series of powerful support skills such as hiding, teleportation, shield, and HP regeneration. Moreover, if she activated a super powerful enemy detection skill, she could detect the enemy in advance before they approached and give instructions for the next action. Are you going to look for the great sage, heaven's equal, Lord Wuming? Wanli Gu Yoli took Kalas and then asked worriedly. Yes, after all, I was the one who released him. It's my fault for not trapping him with an inherent barrier. I'll try my best to reduce the damage to the surroundings. After saying that, Wuming turned around and was about to leave. Please wait a moment, Yoli shouted. Wuming turned his head and looked at Yoli, who called out to him. Please come back safely, please. Looking at Yoli's rare serious face, Wuming said with a smile. Of course. Chapter 209. Wuming came to a hill. Wuming wasn't worried about Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing. Not to mention Neza, even Erika and Liliana, who had activated Golgotha and David's language spirit, were not ordinary people, not to mention Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard, who held the heavenly cloud sword, because Wuming wasn't worried about them. Flying to the top of the hill, Wuming saw a golden monkey-shaped rock, which was constantly absorbing the power of the earth. At this time, Wuming directly took out a milky white holy spear from the golden ripples. It was originally the core branch of the world tree, which was taken down by Skaha, refined, and given to Wuming. After that, it merged with the forest divine beast Fanbaba, which strengthened the holy spear a lot. It could be used as both a weapon and a weapon. It could be said that this spear has been with Wuming since Wuming became stronger. Wuming raised the holy spear over his shoulder and began to recite its true name. Its name was My Yggdrasil. Accompanied by countless holy light, green vines wrapped around the white holy spear and stabbed toward the rock. Boom! The top of the hill was directly blown up, and a large number of gravel continued to roll down the hill, and then it was caught by the giant vines that grew out from the foot of the hill. Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, who were fighting, turned their heads slightly because of the explosion at Sun Wukong's location. Erika, the others, and Neza took the opportunity to attack fiercely. Zhu Ganglai, who was already at a disadvantage, was now being beaten until he screamed. You've gone too far. With a roar, Zhu Ganglai threw the rake in his hand, and a huge amount of magical power erupted from his body. In an instant, the original pig-headed man turned into a big wild boar. This time, it was really the same as Welaslana's authority, wild boar. Roar. The huge wild boar howled and rushed toward Erika and others. Fly boots of Hermes. Wings of Artemis. Through the night, please grant me the privilege of flying in the heavenly Tao. Erika and Liliana chanted jump and fly to avoid the collision of the giant boar. On the other hand, clear autumn courtyard's Hui Na stood in place and began to speak with a smile. O Kusanagi cloud sword, with my body as a sacrifice, I am willing to quell the violent spirit. Thousand leaves break, God's Yuan Mao, can surpass. Today my name is, Pity. In an instant, the heavenly pursuit cloud sword in Hui Na's hand began to emit demonic power, and this demonic power wrapped around Hui Na's body. Hui Na's originally clear eyes had turned golden. Hui Na, who was entangled by the heavenly cloud sword's magic, unleashed a powerful force. With a wave of her sword, she blocked the giant boar that Zhu Ganglai had transformed into. What? How could this be possible? A mere human, huh? This is the aura of the god of steel? Zhu Ganglai, who was blocked by Hui Na's attack, couldn't believe it. The girl in front of him blocked his attack with a human body, but when he saw Huina's aura, he understood. Since it's the same kind of steel as elder senior brother, there's no other way. Zhu Ganglai was stunned, and then as if he heard something, Zhu Gonglia's huge body instantly turned into a pool of mud and merged into the ground. In an instant, Huina's eyes reverted back to the pair of red amber-like eyes. She looked at her surroundings in a natural manner. Did Zhu Ganglai disappear? However, Erica, Liliana, and even Wanli Guyoli, who stood in the distance, looked at Huina with unfathomable eyes. On the other side, Sha Wujing, who was fighting with the same ferocious Neza, saw Zhu Ganglai merged into the ground, and he made a feint to avoid Neza. Since second senior brother chose to return to elder senior brother's body, then there's no need for me to exist. With that, Sha Wujing also turned into a pool of mud and seeped into the ground. Neza, who cancelled his 8-armed, 3-headed avatar and returned to the appearance of an ordinary child, was excited. I made the right choice. I didn't expect to meet Sun Wukong and his 2 brothers. However, I'm a little tired. I'd better go back and take a rest first. After that, Neza turned into a bead and disappeared in the air. It could only be said that Neza was indeed a child. He wanted to sleep after playing. On the other side, on the top of the mountain, Wuming waved his hand and a large amount of magical power was released, blowing away the smoke generated by his noble phantasm, revealing Sun Wukong, who was a little embarrassed. Not only the god of disobedience but also the god slayer, both steel and snake. You really deserve to have several identities, little brother. Sun Wukong, who recovered his power, was not annoyed and began to praise Wuming. Wuming held Yggdrasil, which flew back automatically and swung his spear. As expected of the great sage, heaven's equal. If your doppelganger hadn't used monkey fur to create a doppelganger, I wouldn't have been able to tell that the Sun Wukong I trapped in the enchantment was a fake. That's for sure. I, old son, am very confident in my own abilities. Sun Wukong began to chuckle because of Wu Ming's praise. You're so fat and you're panting. But, in an instant, Sun Wukong's face changed. I'm not alone, come on, my brothers. Sun Wukong shouted. In an instant, a pile of mud and a pool of mud appeared from the ground and was instantly absorbed by Sun Wukong. Ha 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 ha. Looking at Sun Wukong, who was laughing, Wu Ming frowned. He had devoured Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, who were his subordinate gods. From there, he had recovered and replenished the energy he had lost when he was trapped in the soul world. Now, the Sun Wukong in front of Wu Ming could be said to be a Sun Wukong who was in his complete form without any power gaps. So that's how it is. You summoned your subordinate gods, Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, just in case to recover your own power. Sun Wukong picked up the golden staff and scratched his cheek. Not all of them. After all, my 2 brothers are very powerful helpers. I summoned them specifically to deal with your little women, but I didn't expect you to be so strong. You interrupted me before I could absorb the ley line to recover my power. Then Sun Wukong became serious. Moreover, devouring sounds bad. After all, we 3 brothers are originally one. Another trinity? Wu Ming thought of Athena. She was also a trinity goddess. Although Kalas was not here with Wu Ming, it was not strange if one thought about it. Tang Sanzang had gone to the west alone to obtain the scriptures. However, because of the addition of mythical elements, he had 3 demon disciples to protect him. It was not strange for Sun Wukong, Zhu Ganglai, and Sha Wujing to be a trinity. Come on, my compatriots, my old enemies. Today is a battle of life and death. Take my staff first. Bang. Chapter 210. Without enemies, Erica and the others naturally became spectators. After all, the battle between the great sage Heaven's Equal who had recovered his strength and Wu Ming who was at full strength wasn't something they could participate in. Even Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Yard who could use divine reliance wasn't qualified. Sun Wukong rode the somersault cloud and held the jianghu staff in his hand. He turned into a stream of light and constantly accelerated to attack Wu Ming. Wu Ming was not to be outdone. He directly activated the Phoenix transformation. He held Meteor Silver in his right hand and Yggdrasil in his left hand. He released magic from his feet and collided with Sun Wukong. Every time Wu Ming released Heaven Lock, Monkey King could dodge it with lightning speed. After a long time, Wu Ming simply stopped using Heaven Lock and started a pure hand-to-hand fight with Wu Ming. It could only be said that Monkey King was worthy of being the god of steel. His pure strength was much higher than Wu Ming's. If it weren't for the Loon Rune, Wu Ming wouldn't be able to compete with him. Every collision between the two could cause the nearby mountain to collapse, and every attack could cause a gust of wind to sweep around. Erica and others had to retreat a few kilometers away. At this moment, Wuming was already high. It had to be said that the great sage Heaven's Equal was truly the great sage. Even if he had regained his power and appeared as the god of disobedience, his ability was still considerable as a pure god of steel. And Wuming, although his strength was weakened a lot because of his transformation from a dragon body to a human body, he was still the root dragon. His body was extremely strong, his magical power was almost unlimited, and he also had many noble phantoms, Lune Rune and Yggdrasil, World Tree, magic buff. Wuming couldn't do anything to Wuming. The main reason was that both of them had lightning speed ability. Once one of them wanted to run away, the other couldn't stop him at all. However, Sun Wukong also had a shortcoming. Of course, it was another shortcoming in addition to his poor swimming skills, and that was, rumor has it that the great sage Heaven's Equal is not proficient in spells. He is used to using his jianghu bang and his own transformation techniques to fight his enemies. Today I will verify if this is true. That's right. No matter where it was in the myths, Sun Wukong didn't use any large-scale destructive spells. He basically just used the jianghu bang. This meant that Sun Wukong was not proficient in magic. As he spoke, Wuming moved away from Wuming and stood opposite of him. Wuming loosened his hands, and the meteor Silver and Yggdrasil floated beside him. Then, Wuming inserted his right hand into the void, and the golden ripples of the Dragonist relic appeared. Wuming took out a mysterious book from it. Nameless Spellbook. Level, EX type, Human Relic Distance. 1 maximum catch. 1. It was a magic book that contained all the magic spells in a certain world, including the newly created magic spells. Under normal circumstances, this seemingly thick book with countless pages was only used by Wuming to read. However, the God Slayer could use the power of God, and some servants could also use their own relic. Wuming used this relic with another relic. Come and try my magic, great sage Heaven's Equal. Then golden ripples appeared behind Wuming, and the golden ripples spread behind him. In an instant, all the golden ripples were unfolded. Sun Wukong held the jianghu bang and looked sideways slightly. There were at least thousands of golden ripples that surrounded the two of them. Each golden ripple began to gather magical power, and the magical power in each golden ripple began to increase. Gradually, the total amount of magical power had exceeded the magical power in Sun Wukong's body. So what if I'm not good at magic? And you, little brother, are bullying me too much? You think you can treat me like this just because you have a lot of magical weapons? Isn't that a bit disloyal? Although it was a bit frivolous, Sun Wukong was ready, but he was not too worried. With the current density of these golden ripples, he could easily pass through them with the somersault cloud. However, Wuming smiled slightly. Then come and try it, great sage Heaven's Equal. I call it godsend. In an instant, each golden ripple burst out with a bright light that ordinary people couldn't open their eyes, followed by the emergence of a powerful level 10 magic spell. The principle was that Wuming issued a search magic command to the Nameless Spellbook and injected a large amount of magical power to let the Nameless Spellbook activate these magic spells. Then he connected the Nameless Spellbook to Dragonist to establish an exit in the outside world to release these magic spells. To put it simply, Dragonist had created a channel between the uninscribed book and space. Thousands of Tier 10 offensive spells cast by the uninscribed book would be released in an instant. The large-scale destructive power of the uninscribed book was comparable to the combined power of several dozen supreme spells. Wuming believed that even if the true body of the mythical gods came, they would not dare to take this move head-on. In other words, once hit by this move, even if Sun Wukong had life-saving means now, he would be badly injured even if he did not die. Sun Wukong also realized the fatal nature of this move and instantly rode the somersault cloud to a place where the golden ripples were spaced apart. However, Wuming was already prepared. Countless chains appeared from every golden ripple that was gathering magic power. Every chain that appeared from the golden ripple intertwined with the heaven lock closest to it. In an instant, a large net was formed. It was a net that was specifically used to attack gods. Sun Wukong immediately changed direction and flew down. After all, these golden ripples only covered Wuming and Sun Wukong from the surroundings and above. The ground was still empty. Don't even think about it. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me who have wings. My wings will bring you curses. Evil people will not be able to hit me. In an instant, the long and short needles in Wuming's heart turned at the same time and pointed in the direction of 10 o'clock. Wuming's godlike speed in an instant surpassed Sun Wukong's godlike speed and flew in front of Sun Wukong, blocking his path. Get out of my way. Sun Wukong brandished the jianghu bang and viciously smashed it at Wu Ming. I am the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it is a human or a demon, I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. In an instant, the long and short needles pointed in the direction of 2 o'clock. An indomitable giant appeared and fiercely hit Sun Wukong, instantly sending him back into the circle of golden ripples. At this time, the twilight of the gods, God's End, was completed. Chapter 211. Near Mount Riguang. Erica and the others looked strangely at the spot where there should have been a violent explosion. Just as Wu Ming set up the array and trapped the great sage Heaven's Equal, Erica and the others had been retreating. At that time, the mana emitted by the thousands of golden ripples frightened Erica, who had nothing to fear, let alone the other girls. Besides, the mana was still rising. Just as the girls retreated to about a few kilometers away, the mana reached a critical saturation point and erupted. However, at this moment, there was no one in the place where Wu Ming and the thousands of golden ripples had disappeared completely. Erica and the others stood on a high ground and looked at the place where Wu Ming had been. What's going on? Why are Lord Wu Ming and the great sage Heaven's Equal gone? Wanli Gu Yoli hurriedly asked the other girls with a worried look. Don't worry, Yoli, His Majesty will be fine. Huina comforted her and said firmly without any worry in her voice. Huina is right. Wu Ming is both the god of disobedience and the god slayer. If I'm not wrong, Wu Ming should have started his inherent enchantment the moment he used that move, Erica analyzed. I agree with Erica's opinion. The only thing that can explain this is our Lord's inherent barrier, Liliana said calmly, not panicking. However, the girls' personalities could also be seen from this. A few weeks ago, Wanli Gu Yoli was still a high school student living an ordinary life. Although she knew about magic and the god of disobedience, she didn't go deep into it. However, she was quite determined. Even when she was kidnapped by Marquis Wu Ming and learned that he was going to perform the summoning ritual for the god of disobedience, she still threatened the god slayer with suicide. After being rescued by Wu Ming and returned to Japan, she continued her high school life. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't have recovered so quickly. Erica and Liliana, as the two prodigies, nurtured by the Black Cross and the Black Cross respectively, were already experienced grand knights at the young age of 16. It was enough to show that they had experienced a lot on the edge of life and death. Although Erica immediately pledged her loyalty to Wu Ming after seeing Wu Ming defeat and kill the two gods of disobedience, she wasn't frivolous. Erica was still famous. She was popular in all the magic associations in the world and couldn't be taken advantage of. It could be said that she had never been loyal to anyone. However, once Erica set on her goal, she would persevere. After being rescued by Wu Ming, she was a little curious about him. And Wu Ming. After learning that Wu Ming's intention to protect humans, Wu Ming as if she was a gamble. She had chosen to become his knight. But it was the same for Liliana. Don't think that she pledged her loyalty to Wu Ming after Wu Ming asked her if she was loyal to him and Karen instigated her. If it wasn't someone Liliana approved of, no one could make Liliana pledge her loyalty. Liliana didn't pledge her loyalty to Marquis Wu Ming either. That was what she said at that time. Liliana Kranikar, on behalf of the Black Cross, is on your side. Liliana also chose to pledge her loyalty to Wu Ming because of Wu Ming's character and Erica's presence. She said that they didn't have a good relationship, but in fact, Liliana also knew that she had always said that she didn't have a good relationship with Erica, but that was only because they were in the same camp. If she still said that after pledging her loyalty to Wu Ming, it was purely a matter of arrogance. In short, it could be said that Erica and Liliana didn't choose the wrong person, and Wu Ming didn't fail to live up to their loyalty. As for Huina of the Qingqiu courtyard, this exceptionally simple girl came to Wu Ming's side because of her grandfather's order. In fact, Susanoo wanted Huina to be his eyes to understand and monitor Wu Ming. After all, in the eyes of God, such talents would appear in every era, and it didn't matter even if they were sacrificed. After Huina of the Qingqiu courtyard received the order to come to Wu Ming's side, she arranged herself to be one of Wu Ming's items. In terms of loyalty, Huina of the Qingqiu courtyard was now the most loyal person among Wu Ming's followers. Even if Huina was to attack Susanoo's life, Wu Ming believed that this pure girl would use the power of Susanoo's life to attack him. After all, under the order of the new master, she couldn't use the power given to her by the original master to attack the original master. This was different for Huina of the Qingqiu courtyard. After all, this girl was too naive. After being told by her grandfather that she was going to follow the king, she regarded herself as Wu Ming's item. It was like a high-tech robot. If the original master set the next master to be someone else, then she would completely obey the orders of the new master. It could only be said that she had gone astray. Hui Na of the Qingxiu courtyard simply believed that nothing would happen to Wu Ming. There was no reason. Believe in Wu Ming Yoli. He is a rare god. Erica looked at Wanligu Yoli with a smile on her face. Looking at the confident faces of Erica, Liliana, and Hui Na, Wanligu Yoli seemed to understand something and smiled. Yes, I understand, Miss Erica. At this moment, a tiny crack appeared in the void where Wu Ming had been standing but was now empty. Hui Na of the Qingxiu courtyard was the first to discover the crack. Look. Hui Na pointed at the empty void. Erica and Liliana immediately filled their eyes with magic power, and their eyesight was instantly improved to the extreme. Although they couldn't see, Wanligu Yoli crossed his hands and placed them before his chest, looking into the distance. Then, the crack gradually enlarged until it was so big that Wanligu Yoli could see it clearly. Then the space shattered. Crack, crack, crack. The sound that sounded like a mirror breaking came to the girl's ears. In the shattered void, two figures emerged from it. Master Wu Ming. Wanligu Yoli yelled in excitement. Although he couldn't see clearly and could only see a vague outline, Wanligu Yoli still believed that it was Wu Ming. Great. Master Wu Ming is fine. Feeling reassured, Wanligu Yoli lowered his head slightly and put his palms together as if he were thanking the gods. In the distance, Wu Ming faced Sun Wu Ming with a quaint golden sword in the style of wuxia. At this moment, both of them were in rags. You bastard! How dare you scheme against me? Sun Wu Ming said furiously. Chapter 212. Goku's complaint was not wrong at all. Wu Ming indeed plotted against Goku. At first, he bluffed with the twilight of the gods, godsend, and when he escaped, he released the heaven lock hidden in the golden ripples and formed a giant net. Then, when Sun Wukong escaped toward the gap below, he activated his double authority and used super speed to overtake Sun Wukong. Then he used the super giant to punch him into the twilight of the gods, godsend. Finally, he took out the staff of Anzi-Ergong and trapped the exploding twilight of the gods, godsend, together with Sun Wukong and Wu Ming himself in the fixed boundary. After all, an explosion of such a scale would definitely affect the nearby areas. Erica and the others who had the ability to protect themselves would be fine, but if something went wrong, the famous Sunshine Mountain would definitely be razed to the ground, including the scattered residents around. Goku's weakness mentioned by Wu Ming before was not that Goku was not proficient in magic, but that he was often deceived by schemes. This was a common occurrence in myths and legends. Sun Wukong was lured away by a demon using a trick, resulting in Tang Sanzang being captured. It was not unreasonable for the Trinity to be one. The reason why Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing were not strong and did not have much use in myths and legends was entirely because the three brothers were a trinity. All their abilities were concentrated on one person, so naturally they were weak. Although I'm not very proficient in schemes, I still know the principle of using my strength to attack the enemy's weakness. However, Godsend didn't kill you, which is really beyond my expectation. Wu Ming said with a serious face. Ignorant brat, standing on the dragon snake's side, you probably don't know about the ancient covenant. Goku said a word that Wu Ming had never heard of. It just so happens that I also have some doubts, so I'll explain it to you. In order to punish the demon king who killed the gods specially formulated a set of criteria. As long as certain conditions are met, the disobedient god can receive the blessing of heaven, earth, and stars to greatly increase his combat power. That is the ancient covenant. Goku said with a smug smile. However, only a few extremely authoritative and valiant steel can obtain the blessing of the ancient covenant. I, old son, belong to such a steel. Then Goku showed a puzzled expression again. What I, old son, am puzzled about is the condition to activate the ancient covenant. You have to face multiple god slayers to use the ancient covenant. But I, old son, suddenly received a boost just now. Otherwise, even if I, old son, have the invincible Vajra body, I would have been tricked by you. An ancient covenant? If that's the case, then there must be a final king. Wu Ming thought. Maybe the name of my trick stimulated the gods. Wu Ming said half-jokingly. Who cares? I'm not a person who is short of money. Since I'm still alive, let's continue. God Slayer. Goku rushed over with his staff. Wu Ming, on the other hand, held his golden sword horizontally and rushed towards Sun Wukong. This time, Wu Ming started a normal hand-to-hand combat with Goku, and it was a hand-to-hand combat without using his authority in Lun's rune. Several attacks hit Wu Ming, and Wu Ming retreated slightly and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Ah, what's wrong, Godslayer? Are you at your wit's end? Why is it different from before?" Goku laughed and mocked Wu Ming. However, Wu Ming didn't care and continued to fight with Goku. Wu Ming was waiting for an opportunity to hit Sun Wukong. Just now, Wu Ming and Goku met in the enchantment that caused the big explosion. At that time, the enchantment was almost broken. When Wu Ming knew that Goku was not dead, he directly activated his warrior avatar, summoned his golden sword and used a spell. After that, Wu Ming and Goku came out of the enchantment. Goku was very careful now. After all, he fell for Wu Ming's trick once. Seeing that Wu Ming was so weak, he was on his guard. However, the great sage was destined to be unsuited for such delicate work. In an instant, Wu Ming found an opportunity. In an instant, Wu Ming sped up and stabbed the golden sword into Goku's abdomen. Goku's eyes narrowed as if he sensed something. He hurriedly tried to dodge with the somersault cloud. However, at this time, the golden sword was still a bit away from Goku. Suddenly, Wu Ming's heaven lock moved. The heaven lock didn't bind Goku, but chose the hilt of the golden sword. In that instant, the golden sword was pushed by the heavenly lock, and it was this push that allowed the golden sword to pierce Sun Wukong's abdomen while he was riding the somersault cloud. Damn it, it's a weapon that can cut through godhood. Goku instantly realized that his somersault cloud couldn't be used. Die for me, old son. Although Wu Ming had stabbed Goku, Wu Ming was currently in a defenseless state. Goku raised his staff and attacked Wu Ming. However, beep beep beep. Wu Ming's short needle pointed to the 9 o'clock direction. The stone plate depicting a god covered in lightning instantly lit up. Wu Ming transformed into a bolt of lightning and instantly teleported behind Goku. Then he began to chant, "Lightning, lightning, lightning. I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with white, 10,000 with 1,000 and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me who is standing on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. I am the one who will crush all enemies and enmity between humans and demons." The short needle dimmed, and the long needle turned to the 9 o'clock direction, and the god of thunder incarnation was activated. At this moment, Wu Ming's eyes, nose and ears were full of violent lightning, and his whole body was also exuding high-energy lightning. Electric sparks were constantly bursting and dancing. At this moment, Wu Ming was like the god of thunder. "Sure enough, Goku, you do have the courage of steel, but you lack wisdom. Damn God Slayer, you plotted against me again." Goku roared furiously. Wu Ming deliberately did not reveal his ability in order to let the somersault cloud on the golden sword take effect. The golden sword spirit that Wu Ming prepared after knowing that Goku was not dead was the somersault cloud spirit. If he didn't seal the somersault cloud, he wouldn't be able to catch Goku. As for the issue of double authority, that was Wu Ming's new ability. When two needles illuminated at the same time pointed to the same stone plate, the stone plate would erupt with double or more power. However, after using it, there would be a cooldown period. This was also the reason why Silent Cry didn't use Double Phoenix. In order to get rid of Goku as soon as possible, Wu Ming chose to use the Golden Sword Spirit to seal Goku's somersault cloud. Now, without the somersault cloud, Goku was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. "With my spirit, let the justice of the world appear." This spell is powerful and eloquent. It is the sword of wisdom that greets victory. Chapter 213. You were originally a spiritual stone used by Nuwa when she mended the heavens. Some say that you were formed from a spiritual stone created by heaven and earth. You absorbed the sun, moon, yin and yang, and obtained the fortune of heaven and earth. You found the spiritual Fangsuan mountain and worshipped Patriarch Bodhi. You learned a lot of skills, wreaked havoc in the Dragon Palace, stole the sea-steadying divine needle, barged into the underworld, destroyed the Book of Life and Death, went to the Heavenly Palace and caused chaos in the Heavenly Court. At this moment, the words on the sword of spiritual speech changed. Wu Ming continued. Because you were dissatisfied with the position of Horse Protector and disobeyed the Heavenly Court's rules, you descended to the mortal world several times. After being ordered by the Heavenly Court, you received the title of Great Sage, Heaven's Equal. You also fought with the Heavenly Court because you didn't have a spot in the Feast of Immortality. The Heavenly Court was helpless. At this moment, the golden swords gradually increased and surrounded Sun Wukong. The swords were entwined with the curse of Horse Protector. "Shut up for me, old son." Sun Wukong attacked the golden sword array as Wu Ming continued to speak. After being captured by the heavenly court, you cultivated a pair of fiery golden eyes in the alchemy cauldron and caused havoc in the heavenly court again. Then, you were stopped by Gautama Buddha in the western paradise. After losing a bet with him, you were suppressed under the five-finger mountain. This shows that you failed in scheming. The golden swords kept stabbing at Sun Wukong and began to cut his godhood. You were suppressed for 500 years. Later you received guidance from Bodhisattva. You were rescued by Tang Sanzang and protected in his quest for the Buddhist scriptures. After experiencing 81 disasters, you became the victorious fighting Buddha of Buddhism. You changed from a Taoist guardian god to a Buddhist guardian god. At this moment, Sun Wukong was covered in wounds and blood. Now, Sun Wukong's 72 transformations, Dharma form, fiery golden eyes, somersault cloud, and other abilities were all sealed. Wuming continued. And you, the great sage heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, became the victorious fighting Buddha who obeyed Gautama Buddha's orders. Shut up for me, old son. Sun Wukong was completely enraged. He was a person filled with freedom. From his series of actions in the heavenly court, it could be seen that the reason why the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong, appeared in the world was to rebel against his own fate and his unfree life. Every disobedient god had a disobedient side. It had to be said that Wuming really admired the great sage heaven's equal. However, in the end, the great sage heaven's equal's edges were smoothed out, and he became the kind victorious fighting Buddha. Great sage returned to the myths. Wuming raised the golden sword, and the lightning wrapped around it. Then the surrounding golden swords all gathered around Wuming's sword, forming a giant lightning ancient golden sword. Then Wuming slashed at Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong raised the jianghu bang and blocked the powerful strike. However, Kacha. The golden cudgel broke into two pieces, and the golden sword slashed Sun Wukong's body. Looking at the golden hooped staff that had been broken into two pieces, Wuming finally understood Alice's words. The golden ape was sealed in the palace of Eastern Light. The golden heavenly pillar, the invisible seraphic speed, and the delusion breaker eye were attached to it. He was the follower of the overlord of mountains and seas. He was the conqueror of all, the ever-changing lord of dragons and snakes. Thus, he was resurrected by the forbidden dagger held by the steel dragon, and died by the steel dragon's hands. The golden heavenly pillar was the jianghu bang, the seraphic speed was the somersault cloud, the delusion breaker eye was the fiery golden eyes, the overlords of mountains and seas were Zhu Ganglai and Sha Wujing, the forbidden dagger was the talisman that could break all spells, and the steel dragon was me. Clenching the giant golden lightning sword in his hand, Wuming looked at the dying Monkey King. You've won this time, God Slayer. I, old son, have lost to a trick again. I hope you can have a good fight with me next time. After all, Wuming was in a hurry to send the great sage heaven's equal back to the myths, so he used a trick. If we meet again, I will, great sage heaven's equal. Wuming said the last four words very seriously. Puchi. The newly liberated great sage heaven's equal was sent back to the myths. Deactivating the avatars of the Thunder God and the Warrior, Wu Ming flew somewhere unhurriedly, but not to where Erica and the rest of them were. After landing, Wu Ming spoke without looking back. You're here, Guinevere Lancelot. Yes, Wu Ming's power did not increase after killing the great sage, which was the same as when Wu Ming killed Perseus, which meant that the great sage heaven's power was absorbed by the arrowhead disc. Moreover, even if the great sage heaven's equal's power was not absorbed by the arrowhead disc, Wu Ming could guess Guinevere's arrival. Guinevere, who was in pursuit of the strongest steel, couldn't let go of any steel. Even Perseus, who was not a pure steel, Guinevere didn't let him go. As for the matter of Neza, it could only be said to be a coincidence. After all, Guinevere did not need to be around Wu Ming all the time, and Wu Ming's encounter with Neza was an accident, so Neza became Wu Ming's power. After feeling the changes in the surrounding magical power, Wu Ming came to a small forest. As expected of the Villo, you found out my hiding place so quickly. Guinevere's voice came from behind Wu Ming. Wu Ming turned his head. Lancelot rode a white horse without saying a word, and the petite woman sitting in front of him was Guinevere. After Wu Ming learned about Guinevere, he felt sorry for the girl. She forgot everything about her master, but she had to wake him up. But on the way to find her master, she fell in love with the Villo, causing the plan to use King Arthur to summon the last king to fail, and she died. Even if she could be reincarnated, it would be too cruel. I say, do you want to wake up the last king together? Wu Ming asked a question that shocked Guinevere and Lancelot. Guinevere exclaimed. After about 5 minutes, Wu-ming left the small forest. Only the three of them knew what Wu-ming, Guinevere and Lancelot talked about. Guinevere and Lancelot stood in place, looking at Wu-ming in the distance. "That's great, uncle. This way the villa will be our companion." Guinevere smiled sweetly. Lancelot did not say anything and just waited quietly. "It's time to go, my beloved daughter. There are other gods' lairs approaching," Lancelot reminded. "Is it that, Lord?" Guinevere asked with some weariness. Lancelot nodded. "Since it's that, Lord, let's leave first. After all, it'll be troublesome if we get entangled." After that, Lancelot rode his white horse out of the small forest. A moment later, a bolt of lightning came to the small forest, and after checking the small forest, it turned into a bolt of lightning and left. Chapter 214. After Wu-ming parted ways with Guinevere and Lancelot, he found Erica and the others who were looking for him. "Lord Wu-ming?" Wanli Guyoli shouted excitedly. "Thank you for everything you've done for Japan." As he spoke, Wanli Guyoli bowed. "Don't mention it. If you must say, I'm partly responsible for Luo Hao's recent visit to Japan." Wu-ming was right. Wu-ming had asked Luo Hao about it. Luo Hao had originally planned to come later. If it were not for the relationship between Wu-ming and Luo Hao would not have decided to bring forward her visit. "No matter what, you've saved Japan. I'm truly grateful." When he saw this, Wu-ming could only accept it. Usually in such a situation, one would have to devote oneself to him. Erica had a sly smile on her face. "Devote oneself to him?" Liliana cried out in surprise. Devote oneself to him. Clear Autumn Courtyard's Huina blushed slightly. "Why were you offering yourself to me?" Wanli Guyoli's face instantly turned red as he stuttered and shouted. "Why, you perverted devil king." As expected, all devil kings are brutal. "Lord Wu-ming, as a rare virtuous king, you must watch your actions." Wanli Guyoli started lecturing Wu-ming. Wu-ming glanced at Erica rather helplessly. "You've got a bad taste, Erica." Is that so?" "Thank you for the compliment." Erica's face was filled with pride. "But, although I don't want to disturb you, but Lord Cultmaster is here." A casual and frivolous voice was heard. Wu-ming glanced at Kaneji Winterhorse, who was standing at the side. Wu-ming had noticed Kaneji Winterhorse when he arrived. However, due to the atmosphere at the time, Wu-ming did not point it out. Now, it seemed that Erica and the others did not notice this representative of the history editing committee. It could only be said that the other party was not simple. He had to be at least a grand knight. That sect master came so quickly? Liliana was a little surprised. After all, Lu Yinghua had just said that Luo Hao was coming this morning, and she had arrived on the same day. Luo Hao has divine feet. If I'm not wrong, Luo Hao came here on foot. He didn't ride any vehicle, right? Speaking of me, Wu-ming looked at the winter horse. As expected of the king of disobedience. You're right. That hierarch did not ride on any means of transportation. He just appeared out of nowhere. That? May I ask if God's limbs is Lord Hierarch's power? Wanli Guyoli asked. If I'm not wrong, it should be Chinese Kung Fu, Erica said. That's right. The so-called divine celerity is actually the use of wuxia's Kung Fu when it's practiced to the extreme and can travel thousands of miles in a day. To put it simply, it's teleportation. So powerful. Wanli Guyoli covered her mouth in disbelief. Well, after all, there are also advanced magic such as teleportation, flight, and so on in magic. Yoli will be fine as long as she comes into contact with them more. Huina smiled at Wanli Guyoli and comforted her. There's no time to lose. Let's go and meet Luo Hao, Wu-ming said. That's right. Otherwise, the sect leader will really tear down Japan. Please. Kaneji Winterhorse looked very embarrassed. He clasped his hands and begged. However, no matter how one looked at it, the winter horse gave off a leisurely and lazy aura. Let's go. After Wu-ming finished speaking, Erica and the others went ahead and got into the car prepared by the winter horse. Meanwhile, Wu-ming and the winter horse got into the car behind. Originally, Huina wanted to sit with Wu-ming. However, Erica clearly saw through Wu-ming's intention and pulled the girls into the car in front. In the car, the winter horse sat in the driver's seat, Wu-ming sat in the back, and a man in a suit with short hair sat in the front passenger seat. He had a neutral appearance. Thank you for crusading against the great sage, heaven's equal, Lord King of Disobedience. After the car started, the woman spoke. To be honest, when Wu-ming first got into the car, he was not sure if this was a woman. After she spoke, Wu-ming combined the few characteristics that he observed that she did not have an Adam's apple and slightly protruding chest. Only then did he confirm that this was a woman. She had short black hair, simple and unadorned black-rimmed eyes, a beautiful face and an otherworldly temperament. There was not a trace of fat on her slender body. Coupled with the men's suit, those who did not know her would think that she was a beautiful young man who came out of nowhere. You must be xianxia, the head of the Tokyo branch of the Japan History Redaction Committee. Wu-ming revealed her true identity. Xianxia came from the Xiaogong family, one of the 4 major magician families in Japan. She was the same as Huina, who came from the Kukian house. She was also the highest-ranking witch among the witches. I didn't expect Lord King of Disobedience to know me. It's a great honor. Xianxia said with a smile. Don't play around with me. Susanoo is your boss, right? The winter horse was obviously stunned when he heard this, but he quickly reacted. However, Wu-ming still caught this scene. Yes, Lord Yu Laogong is indeed my boss. He is also the founder of the Japan History Redaction Committee. Xianxia didn't hide anything and said something that shocked everyone. However, Wu-ming was not surprised. I don't know how Wu-ming found out about this. Xianxia asked. Wu-ming, on the other hand, laughed in boredom. The Jizuka family is the family that manages the West Heaven Palace. When the dragon snake was still alive, they knew and could use the witches to weaken the seal of the Great Sage equaling heaven. The Great Sage equaling heaven was ordered by Susanoo to be brought to Japan. These two are obviously related. Wu-ming glanced at the sweating winter horse and continued. Huina was born in the Sakura courtyard, and she called Kususaka Onami, grandfather. From this, it can be seen that the other 3 families are related to Kususaka Onami. Although that guy said that he graduated with his personality, it's impossible for him to not cause trouble. But there is one thing I didn't guess. I only thought that Susanoo was the one who supported the establishment of the Japan History Redaction Committee. I didn't expect him to be the one who established the committee. After Wu-ming finished, Xianxia clapped her hands. As expected of someone who can suppress Lord Yu Laogong. I didn't expect Wu-ming-sama to be so smart. Wu-ming did not comment on Xianxia's flattery. He just smiled and did not comment on Xianxia's praise. Since I already know so much, it would be wrong if I still can't figure it out. After all, the fact that Huina called Susanoo as her grandfather was enough to know that he was related to the 4 major families. The Japan History Redaction Committee was basically made up of the 4 major families. Therefore, there was no need to think about anything else. So, are you here to pledge allegiance to me, Xianxia? Chapter 215. This question made Kaneko Winterhorse break out in cold sweat again. Although he knew some things, he didn't know that much. Now that he was sandwiched between 2 big shots, it wasn't a good thing. Yes, I am here to pledge my allegiance to Wu-ming Saya. Saya Miyazaki didn't beat around the bush. At this moment, Kaneko Winterhorse felt that he couldn't break out in cold sweat anymore. You are so sure that you chose me. Aren't you afraid that Susanoo will come after you? Wu-ming said casually. I am a smart woman and a woman who likes to gamble, but I am still a woman who doesn't want to give up. Wu-ming understood what Saya Miyazaki meant. She also wanted to gamble just like Tuerika. She wanted to bet on Wu-ming. If she succeeded, she would be second only to one person. Or maybe it was because of Wu-ming's personality that he didn't like to be in charge. Simply put, she would be second only to one person. However, if she lost, death would be considered a light punishment. Speaking of which, I have nothing to do with Susanoo. Logically speaking, even if you pledge your allegiance to me, you won't get anything. Wu-ming closed his eyes and leaned back in the back seat. As a king, you still lack a piece of land. Europe has the King of Swords and Marquis Warban, mainland China has the Pope, America has the superhero John Pluto Smith, Madame Aisha's whereabouts are unknown, and the Black Prince Yarek is in conflict with the British forces. Currently, Japan is the easiest place for you to conquer. Saya Miyazaki was right. The senior officials of Japan's History Editing Committee naturally knew that their leader was the god of disobedience. Even if they changed their leader, they wouldn't have any conflict, let alone a more powerful leader. With Saya Miyazaki around, once Silent Wonder announces that Japan is his territory, and then defeats or even kills Susanoo, those higher-ups will definitely be obedient, unlike Britain's Black Prince Yarek, who was resisted by his own forces. Moreover, the last king you seek is in Japan. After conquering Japan, you won't need anyone to interfere with what you do in your own territory, including the entry of other kings. Xianxia was right. Becoming the king of Japan would be a great help to Wu Ming's next move. Just like Luo Hao who came to Japan, if this land was Wu Ming's territory, then Luo Hao wouldn't have come uninvited. In Luo Hao's opinion, the dignity of a king was inviolable. Therefore, Luo Hao would not casually trespass into another king's territory. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Wu Ming smiled. Then what's in it for you? Xia Gong Xn pushed up her glasses and said without hesitation. I don't want to be under others. You are the god of disobedience. Moreover, I have not pledged my loyalty to the history editing committee. Sayaka Gong Xn's meaning was clear. Susanoo won't let Sayaka Gong Xn become the boss, but Wu Ming will. This is because Wu Ming doesn't have any requirements for these mundane matters. Furthermore, as the god of disobedience, it's normal for him to be under Wu Ming. Once Wu Ming succeeds, Sayaka Gong Xn will become the sole ruler of Japan's magic world, and Wu Ming will be the god. Then I will accept your allegiance, Sayaka Gong Xn. Thank you, Wu Ming-sama. In the future, I will make sure that your decision is correct. Then I look forward to working with you. Yes, I look forward to working with you. Just like that, the fate of Japan was decided in these two cars. At the same time, there was also a Mr. Gansu whose cold sweat had dried up. In Wu Ming's villa, the interior of the main hall had been renovated into an antique style. Luo Hao sat on a futon with his eyes closed, waiting quietly. Lu Yinghua stood behind Luo Hao. His body was tense as he looked ahead with malice. Alice sat elegantly in front of Luo Hao. She smiled but didn't say a word. When Wu Ming and the others arrived outside the villa, they weren't in a hurry to go in. Sayaka Gong Xn got off halfway because she still had something to deal with. Therefore she wasn't here. After getting off the car, Gansu Dongma spoke. Lord Wu Ming, I won't be going in. Wu Ming naturally knew why Gansu Dongma didn't want to go in. Luo Hao had set the rules. Those who saw his face would have their eyes gouged out, and those who heard his voice would have their ears destroyed. That's right, it was that cruel. Is it that scary? Wanli Guyoli was obviously frightened. Wanli Guyoli was already afraid of the God Slayer, let alone Luo Hao, who was as cruel as Marquis Warban. It's because Lord Bishop's disciple told us that Lord Bishop has arrived at Lord Wu Ming's villa. That's why we came back to look for you, Gansu Dongma explained. In other words, Lord Bishop trespassed on private property? Wu Ming joked. Only you, Wu Ming, would dare to say that. Erica was a little helpless. Gansu Dongma smiled awkwardly. Erica was indeed right. I wonder how Alice is doing. Wu Ming thought of Alice who was still in the villa. Then a group of people walked into the villa. As soon as they entered, Wu Ming saw a rather awkward scene. Alice and Luo Hao sat opposite each other while Lu Yinghua stood behind Luo Hao. They didn't say anything. As the door opened, Luo Hao opened his eyes and looked at Wu Ming. Alice and Lu Yinghua also looked at Wu Ming. Dear, you're back, Alice said elegantly. She stood up and walked weakly to Wu Ming's side and hugged his arm. Everyone was confused. Wu Ming, even if I respect you, you can't snatch my prey. Before the others could speak, Luo Hao glared and roared. It's like this, Luo Hao, I've said it before. I allow you to call me Green Lotus. Instantly, the surrounding women looked at Wu Ming with strange expressions. Let's talk outside. If not, we'll fight. All right. Ever since I fought with you, I've been itching for a fight. Today is a good time to spar. With that, Luo Hao charged at Wu Ming. Wu Ming took out the staff of Ain's Ergong and activated the inherent barrier, enveloping himself in Luo Hao, leaving the confused women and Lu Yinghua in the wind. Inside the inherent barrier, the sixth layer of the forest, Wu Ming activated Phoenix and Giant, and kept fighting with Luo Hao. Luo Hao used 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palms and Wu Ming Vajra Divine Art. With the combination of skill and strength, she successfully competed with Wu Ming's speed and strength. Yes, she wanted to compete. Luo Hao, who was proficient in various martial arts, created her own skills. 12 Flying Phoenix Divine Palms, coupled with Luo Hao's authority and Vajra Divine Art, Luo Hao's strength was like adding wings to a tiger. Wu Ming, on the other hand, was weaker than Luo Hao in terms of punching and kicking, so Wu Ming used speed. It should be known that there was nothing in the world that could not be defeated except speed. The speed of the Phoenix incarnation combined with the strength of the Giant incarnation made it so that Wu Ming did not need to pay attention to technique. Just relying on speed and strength, he was able to fight evenly with Luo Hao. It seems that you hid your strength last time, Wu Ming. Chapter 216. After all, I only used martial arts to compete with you last time. Wu Ming explained as he flashed through the woods around Luo Hao. So, are you going to use only your authority this time? Luo Hao observed the surroundings vigilantly. Luo Hao, who had reached the peak of martial arts, could naturally capture objects moving at lightning speed. However, even though he could catch it, Luo Hao didn't dare to keep up with that speed. Therefore Luo Hao became the defensive side. I do have that intention. Is that so? It seems that you are underestimating me, Luo Hao, the king of disobedience. In an instant, Luo Hao burst out with powerful magic. The heavens are clear, the earth is peaceful, and the people are peaceful. An invisible force surged. War in the south, death in the north, the dead in the wild cannot be buried and the crows can be eaten. For me the crows can be eaten, and for Ku Hao. Golden particles attached to this invisible force. Boom. The ground began to be destroyed by the golden particles with Luo Hao as the center. As Luo Hao chanted, the golden particles moved faster and instantly reached Wu Ming. As expected of someone who had reached the peak of martial arts, Luo Hao predicted Wu Ming's location and instantly hit Wu Ming. Bang. Wu Ming was sent flying and broke several trees. Smoke and dust filled the air. Wu Ming was forced out of his lightning speed mode. Huff. A giant phantom waved its hand and dispersed the smoke and dust. As expected of the king of martial arts. Even if you are not as fast as me, you are still better in terms of technique. Looking at Wu Ming, who acted as if nothing had happened, Luo Hao said, Wu Ming, you are still intact after being hit by the combination of my two authorities. You have the right to look down on me, Luo Hao. That's why I said I looked down on you. Wu Ming did not understand why Luo Hao, who was fine a moment ago, suddenly flipped out. He did not mean to look down on Luo Hao. It's useless to say more. Take this. Brilliant yang, brilliant lightning, heavenly spirit, earthly spirit, Taishang Laojuan's urgent decree. The dead in the wild will not be buried. How can rotten flesh escape? The sound of water is intense, the reeds are indistinct. The valiant horsemen fight to the death, the poor horses wander about. As the two lines of the poem were recited, a huge golden particle palm struck towards Wu Ming using the 12 flying phoenix divine palms. Thou hast violated the contract and brought evil to the world. The Lord's day, the sinner must be punished. Their spines were crushed, their tendons, bones, hair and brains were dug out, and their blood and mud were trampled on. If I am one who cannot approach the darkness, then I will follow the Lord's words and destroy thee. In an instant, Wu Ming's golden giant phantom turned red, like an evil spirit that had returned from purgatory. It was ferocious and dazzling, emitting waves of annihilation aura. Boom! The giant's dark red palm and the huge golden palm collided. The destructive aura and the golden particles reacted strongly, causing a dazzling light. It was as if a nuclear bomb had exploded. With Wu Ming and Luo Hao at the center, the impact of the light destroyed the surrounding forest. When the destructive light disappeared, what appeared in front of Wu Ming and Luo Hao was a scorched wilderness. Wu Ming and Luo Hao were still in the same position as before the explosion. However, the giant phantom and the golden palm had disappeared. Wu Ming was still fine as he was basically unharmed. As for Luo Hao, her clothes were slightly tattered, revealing part of her body. Wu Ming looked at Luo Hao, whose clothes were slightly tattered, and asked kindly, "Do you still want to fight?" When Luo Hao heard this, she exploded again. "Before I was a woman, I was a king, a disobedient king. You took advantage of the fact that we've been honest before and humiliated me several times. Today it's either you die or I live." With that, Luo Hao did not care about her clothes and activated her authority again. However, at this moment, Luo Hao sensed an enemy behind her. "Let me sleep for a while." Wu Ming's voice came from behind Luo Hao. Then Luo Hao fell into a deep sleep. Before her delicate body fell to the ground, Wu Ming hugged her with his big hands. "Really, with such a cute face, why is your temper so weird?" Wu Ming hugged Luo Hao and carefully looked at Luo Hao's face. Then Wu Ming looked at Wu Ming standing in the distance. "Okay, you come back too." Wu Ming in the distance shrugged, then turned into a black shadow and merged into Wu Ming's body. This was one of Wu Ming's avatars, dependents. When Wu Ming first came into contact with this authority, he thought that dependents were summoned creatures, but he found out that dependents were copies of himself and summoned. Although Wu Ming said, "Come back," the avatars did not have their own consciousness. All of the avatars' consciousness was Wu Ming. And Wu Ming could receive all of the avatars' senses, and the avatars also had all of Wu Ming's abilities. Simply put, it was like a person playing with several computers, or a person's consciousness had several bodies. If one had to say, it was schizophrenia. The upper limit of the avatars was about 12, and the strength of the avatars was inversely proportional to the number of avatars. One avatar's strength was 100% of the original body's, 2 avatars were 50% of the original body's strength, 4 avatars were 25% of the original body's strength, and so on. In other words, the fewer the avatars, the stronger the avatars. Wu Ming used this authority during the big explosion, leaving the avatars where they were, and then used the speed of the phoenix to come behind Luo Hao. Wu Ming suppressed his magic and breath. Because of the magic chaos after the explosion, Luo Hao did not notice Wu Ming until Wu Ming moved. At that time, Luo Hao wanted to turn back, but Wu Ming directly used magic to shock her brain, causing her to faint. For ordinary people, directly using magic to shock the brain may cause irreversible damage, but it should be fine for the Godslayer. After all, she is a Godslayer. It would be bad if the means are too light to cause her to faint. Wu Ming comforted himself. Last time, Salvatore was the same. After being hit by Wu Ming, he only fainted. Forget it, let's go out first. With his mind, the staff of Anzavulgan was spat out from the golden ripples and floated beside Wu Ming. Wu Ming held Luo Hao with both hands and said to Kalas on his head, "Please, Kalas." "Yes, master." Kalas was originally in the hands of Wanli Yoli, but because Wanli Yoli was no longer in danger, Kalas took the initiative to leave Wanli Yoli and found Wu Ming on her own. Wanli Yoli seemed to have forgotten about Kalas. If Kalas had not returned to Wu Ming's hands and Wu Ming did not ask Wanli Yoli anymore, Wanli Yoli would probably be in a panic now. Wu Ming smiled and shook his head and said casually, "Let's go out and flirt with her." Inherent enchantment, contact. Kalas entered the command into the staff of Anzavulgan. After entering the command, the staff of Anzavulgan began to glow, and the inherent enchantment began to lift. Soon, Wu Ming returned to the villa hall with Luo Hao in his arms. Chapter 217. Previously, after Wu Ming and Luo Hao entered the inherent barrier, Lu Yinghua looked at Alice and the others with an ugly and hostile expression on his face. However, Alice and the others ignored him. "Your Highness Alice, what happened just now?" Liliana asked with a red face. Naturally, the question she asked was about the deer. However, Alice, who was teasing her, replied in this way. "Allah, what's wrong with that? Master Wu Ming and I have even done this and that kind of thing," Alice said with a shy face and a coquettish voice. That? Liliana, Wanli Yoli and Clear Autumn Courtyard Huina blushed. Is that so? Have you and my master reached that stage?" This was Liliana, who pretended to be serious, but her face was as red as a monkey's butt. It's really too impure?" This was Wanli Yoli, who could not accept the sudden outburst. "I wonder if it's comfortable." This was Clear Autumn Courtyard Huina, who was blushing but curious. How can you, Huina? You can't think about these things?" Wanli Yoli held Huina's hands worriedly and admonished her. "I say, your reactions are too exaggerated." Erica looked at the 3 innocent girls and Alice, who was snickering at the side with a headache. "I say, it's about time for you to settle down," Lu Yinghua said angrily as if he could not take it anymore. When Alice saw this, she returned to her seat with a smile. "What? Don't the disciple of the cult master have confidence in her master?" Lu Yinghua frowned and took a deep breath. "Of course, I have confidence in my master's words. However, that king of disobedience is no ordinary king. Also, can you not talk to me? You're looking at us with such hostility. Do you want to fight?" Erica stood up and provoked. Since he came in, Lu Yinghua had been looking at them with hostile eyes. Even Erica was a little displeased to be stared at with hostility by someone she was not familiar with. "That's exactly what I was thinking. Godslayers will fight against Godslayers and their subordinates will fight against their disciples," Lu Yinghua said somewhat impatiently. Wait. Wanli Yoli was a little confused. She had never thought that such a situation would happen. "After all, this is for the glory of our Lord. Liliana Kranikar requests to step forward," Liliana said in a serious tone. "It seems very interesting. I want to participate as well." Hui Na from the Clear Autumn Courtyard picked up the clouds of heaven and said happily like a child participating in a sports competition. Wait a minute, how can you do this?" Wanli Yoli said somewhat anxiously. On the other hand, Alice, the culprit, was sitting on the sofa and watching this scene with interest. At this tense moment, Wu Ming's figure appeared in the villa's living room. Accompanying Wu Ming was Luo Hao, who was covered in a white cloth and unconscious. "Wu Ming. My lord." Lord Wuming. Your Majesty. The four women responded. Alice tilted her head and smiled at Wuming. Wuming glanced at Alice, then looked at Lu Yinghua. Your master has fainted in the battle with me. Take care of her. As he spoke, he was about to hand Luo Hao's body over to Lu Yinghua. Senior, this junior doesn't dare. Lu Yinghua knelt on the ground with a thud and shouted loudly. It's only right for the disciple to take care of the master. There's nothing to be afraid of. Wuming raised an eyebrow. Could this be another rule set by Luo Hao? Senior, this junior really doesn't dare. If there's a lie, may the heavens strike me with lightning. Also, you and master are best friends of the opposite sex. It's only right for you to take care of her, Lu Yinghua said, then lowered his head even more. Why don't you all do it? Wuming looked at the other women. However, they all shook their heads. My dear, have you forgotten that sect leader Luo Hao is an existence that can gouge out one's eyes upon seeing one's appearance and destroy one's ears upon hearing one's voice? Because of you, the few of us weren't treated like this by the sect leader. However, that also depends on the severity of the matter. Alice continued to speak coquettishly. That's right. Wuming, even his disciple Lu Yinghua doesn't dare to take on the task, let alone us, Erica added. After sweeping a glance at the few people present, Wuming shrugged. Then I'll do it. Then Wuming carried Luo Hao to an empty room. It was because her clothes were torn and Wuming found a white cloth to cover Luo Hao's exposed body. He placed Luo Hao on the bed, lifted the white cloth covering Luo Hao's body, and covered her with a quilt. Let's see if you dare to take advantage of me in the future. Wuming smiled, stroked Luo Hao's forehead with his hand and then left the room. After coming to the living room, Lu Yinghua and the women, who were originally at daggers drawn, no one talked to each other. Wuming also studied this problem at the beginning, why Lu Yinghua was so hostile to Erica and the others. As a result, the information found from the information he obtained indicated that Lu Yinghua, who seemed handsome and chic, was extremely disgusted with women, especially powerful women. In layman's terms, it was a disease, and the name of the disease was misogyny. Because Lu Yinghua was trained by Luo Hao since he was a child, and Luo Hao's training method was one word, beating. Of course, Lu Yinghua was the one who was beaten. Over time, Lu Yinghua became extremely hateful of women, especially powerful women, who would always remind him of Luo Hao when he went back. As for the few women present, except for Wanli Guyoli, the rest were all capable and strong women. Erica and Liliana were prodigies trained by Black Cross and Black Cross. Their strength was needless to say. Hui Na of the Qingqiu courtyard was the Qingqiu courtyard's wuxialover. She had the ultimate skill of inviting the gods to descend. She was the #1 witch of Japan, and her strength was the strongest among the girls. And Alice was even more so. She was a famous woman who could compete with the Black Prince Yarek with her wisdom. Known as the White Witch, she was the former president of Greenwich's Sage Parliament and the current special advisor. Therefore, Lu Yinghua, who seemed to be a handsome young man, was actually a misogynist who hated women. Well, sit down first. Luo Hao and I are done. Do you want to continue? Wuming's words broke the cold atmosphere, and then Wuming sat down first, and Alice sat next to Wuming. Erica, Liliana, Guyoli, and Qingqiu courtyard Hui Na stood behind Wuming. Of course, Lu Yinghua was also there. You sit down. Wuming sighed and commanded. Chapter 218. In the end, Erica and others sat down with Lu Yinghua. Afterward, after a series of conversations, Wuming filtered out the series of events just now. After Luo Hao entered the villa, she woke up Alice, who was sleeping. Because Luo Hao was the king, Alice supported her tired body to entertain the guest. Luo Hao, on the other hand, allowed Alice to face Luo Hao with the excuse that, since you are my friend's wife, then you are not guilty, and you don't have to dig out your eyes and ears. Alice, on the other hand, had evil intentions. In addition, the outside world had basically confirmed the relationship between Wuming and Alice. Therefore, Alice sat opposite Luo Hao as the hostess of the party. That was why Alice called Wuming dear when Wuming came back. Luo Hao came to find Wu Ming because Wu Ming had snatched the great sage heaven's equals prey that she had to kill. What Luo Hao said about humiliating her several times was purely Luo Hao's imagination. To put it nicely, she was arrogant, and to put it bluntly, she was opinionated. Afterward, Wu Ming said to Lu Yinghua, Luo Hao is probably going to wake up soon. You should wait outside her door first. After all, if Luo Hao didn't see Lu Yinghua when she woke up, Lu Yinghua would inevitably suffer physical pain. After all, sect leader had a unique temperament. Yes, senpai, I will take my leave first. After asking which room his master was in, Lu Yinghua used his lightness skill and left the living room. Immediately afterward, Wu Ming looked at the women sitting aside. Okay, you can also move freely. The great sage's matter is completely dealt with. I believe Luo Hao, who was defeated by me, will not make trouble again. After all, she was inexplicably full of dignity. With Wu Ming's understanding of Luo Hao, since she was defeated, she would be obedient as the loser. It was not that Wu Ming knew Luo Hao well, but Luo Hao's character was too easy to guess. However, the women didn't move. Now that the great sage Heaven's equal steel has been eliminated, isn't it time for the strongest steel? Alice asked. That's right. The reason why Wu Ming dealt with the great sage Heaven's equal was to prevent a calamity from arising from the battle between Luo Hao and the great sage Heaven's equal. On the other hand, Wu Ming wanted the final king to appear. The god of steel was especially easy to summon, and Susanoo also said that he summoned the great sage equaling heaven to eliminate the snake and dragon to prevent the resurrection of the strongest god of steel, the last king who was sleeping on the easternmost island. Now that Wu Ming had defeated the great sage Heaven's equal, it was time for the strongest steel to show itself. Guinevere had wanted to confirm whether the great sage equaling heaven was the strongest steel, but now that the great sage equaling heaven was being attacked by Wu Ming, no one would think that the great sage equaling heaven was the strongest steel. Because that lord is invincible, even Vilo-sama is not his opponent. That was what Wu Ming said to Guinevere when she met Wu Ming in the woods. In short, the strongest steel, the last king, would not be defeated. That was what Guinevere would protect even at the cost of his life. In this regard, Wu Ming would not be arrogant enough to say that he could defeat the last king, but Wu Ming would not avoid the battle because of an unknown enemy. Wu Ming-sama, do you really want to liberate the last king? Alice asked solemnly. The other women who knew the inside story also looked at Wu Ming with a serious expression. Wu Ming only had one answer to that. Of course. Wu Ming's face showed an unruly smile. After all, even if I don't take the initiative to liberate the last king now, the last king will be liberated sooner or later. Wu Ming learned from Guinevere that as long as the number of demon kings on the ground increased, the last king would be awakened. Now there were 7 god-slayers on the ground including Wu Ming. Because of Wu Ming's nature, the awakening of the last king was weakened, but as long as another human became a god-slayer in the future, the last king would be awakened, which was irreversible. Wu Ming couldn't help but think of the boy he met when he first came to this world, Xiaohu Tang. Wu Ming had a feeling that if there was no Wu Ming at that time, that boy might have become the 7th king. Of course, Wu Ming believed that as long as he was given some opportunities, he would definitely become the 8th king. Wu Ming didn't have the habit of leaving a time bomb in his house. What Wu Ming had to do was to defuse the bomb at the smallest cost. Erica and the others looked at Wu Ming with a smile. This was one of the reasons why they followed this king. Alice sighed and then, like Erica and the others, looked at Wu Ming with a smile. In that case, I won't stop you, but I have to remind you that the Black Prince Yarek has come to this easternmost island. The Black Prince? Wu Ming thought. When leaving the grove where Guinevere was, Wu Ming vaguely felt a magic power similar to that of the god-slayers, but because there was no need to come into contact with it, Wu Ming didn't care about it. He should have been attracted by the Holy Grail held by Guinevere. The Holy Grail of this world was the Holy Grail of King Arthur mythology, which was refined by Guinevere. The magic power it contained was comparable to that of multiple god-slayers, and it was specially used to provide magic power energy for the awakening of the last king. Wu Ming had read from the information provided by Erica that the Black Prince Yarek had originally sought the Holy Grail, which was held by Guinevere. It was because he refined the Holy Grail that Guinevere was demoted from Mother Earth to godly ancestor. As long as he doesn't provoke me, I won't care about him. Then Wu Ming spoke again. Next, I will go to Secluded World. Secluded World? The girls were puzzled. I'm going to recover Japan and make it my own territory. Wanli Yoli and Liliana were obviously shocked by Wu Ming's words. Hui Na of Qingqiu Courtyard said calmly. Erica frowned and asked after exchanging glances with Alice. Wu Ming, you want to take Japan as your own territory first and then attack the last king? Erica was indeed worthy of being called Erica. She immediately understood Wu Ming's plan. That's right, Erica is the first to understand. I think Alice should have thought of it long ago. After speaking, Wu Ming looked at Alice, who had an "I knew it" expression on her face. Of course. Alice smiled slightly. First of all, Wu Ming, you haven't used your territory so far, and this easternmost island is suitable for you. Second, if you subdue the Japanese Magic Association, it will undoubtedly be of great help in the matter of the last king. It was like living in someone else's house was always better than living in one's own house. If one didn't have a house, one could buy someone else's house. After all, the king was very rich, powerful. In that case, how can't stay here any longer? Chapter 219. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. The tattered clothes on Luo Hao's body had long disappeared and were replaced by gorgeous clothes. Strangely, Xuanhuan was not with Luo Hao. Since you are ready to conquer this easternmost land as your territory, I can't stay here for long. My friend Wu Ming, you have the strength to look down on me, the king of Wuxia, Luo Hao. I admit defeat. Besides, you already have a wife. Even if we have been honest with each other again, let's continue to be friends and confidants. Speaking of me, Luo Hao turned around and disappeared using God's feet, leaving behind Wu Ming and the others with a confused look. To be honest, Wu Ming didn't know when he and Luo Hao became friends. Thinking about it carefully, it should have started at Lushan Mountain. Was it because they were honest with each other and couldn't become each other's other half, so they became friends? Wu Ming expressed that he was depressed. Allah, it seems like Lord Leader really wants to be your husband and wife. How did you treat her? Alice looked at Wu Ming with a joyful expression. However, Wu Ming always felt that there was a trace of jealousy in Alice's words. After all, they were also a pair recognized by the outside world. Even if she didn't feel anything at the beginning, now Alice naturally had some feelings for Wu Ming. Who cares about her? Who doesn't know that there is no normal god-slayer? Wu Ming waved his hand helplessly. Thinking about it, Salvatore, Warban, and Luo Hao, which one of them was not a problem child? Madame Aisha had a physique that unconsciously involved her surroundings, but she could always turn danger into safety. The only one who could be regarded as righteous was the American god-slayer, John Pluto Smith. But it was said that he was also full of chinibyu. Otherwise, he wouldn't wear a motorcycle helmet like a superhero and wear a thick coat to protect the American people. The Black Prince Yarek was the only king who claimed to be different from other god-slayers. Yarek did not like to face his enemies head-on. He usually used tricks to deal with his enemies. That was why Alice was able to compete with Yarek despite the well-known conclusion that humans could not defeat the god-slayers. However, even though Yarek said so, Wu Ming knew that Yarek was also eager to fight. This was what it meant to be a god-slayer. Then I'll go find some trouble. I'll be right back. After saying that, Wu Ming disappeared from the hall. Hidden world. After all, he had been here before. Wu Ming naturally knew the method to head to the secluded world. After arriving at secluded world, Wu Ming immediately moved to a small wooden hut. Without any nonsense, Wu Ming pushed the door open and entered. This time, there was no old monk and Princess Glass Eyes in the room. There was only Susanoo, who was drinking alone and having fun. I won't say much. Give me the history editing committee, and I will destroy the last king. Wu Ming sat across from Susanoo and looked at him as he continued to speak. Your goal is not to revive the last king and let him sleep. My goal is to let him sleep forever. There is no conflict. After drinking a mouthful of wine, Susanoo laughed. Should I say that you are arrogant or should I say that you are fearless? If you haven't seen the last king, you won't believe it. You can't defeat him. It could only be said that Susanoo's character was in line with the character in the myths. Are you trying to say that you are afraid? Wu Ming asked. Afraid? Haha, when have I ever been afraid? I'm just reminding you. Susanoo took another sip of wine and looked at Wu Ming. It's not impossible to give you the history editing committee, but... Susanoo's magic began to condense. This is the result of my many years of hard work. It's too easy to give it to you. Boom. Tyrannical magic broke out from the cabin and completely destroyed the cabin. Wu Ming flew out from the explosion of the cabin and gently landed on the ground. Looking at the fully armed Susanoo in front of him, Wu Ming couldn't help but raise the corner of his mouth. This is also what I want. Then you can try my new ability. I am the strongest and I hold all the victory in my hands. Be it human or demon, I am a person who can defeat all enemies, and I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. Giants with unparalleled divine power, please give me your aid. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me who have wings. My wings will bring you curses. Evil people can't hit me. In an instant, the long and short hands pointed to 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock respectively. The giant stone plate and the phoenix stone plate lit up. Feeling the threat from Wu Ming, Susanoo gathered a strong storm around him. It's not over yet. Wu Ming shouted. I will deny the sky, deny the earth, the storm will destroy everything, and the rain will cover everything. With this supreme divine power, I will make everything in heaven and earth bow down. You have violated the contract and brought sin to the world. On Lord's day, sinners will be punished. Crush their backs, dig out their bones, hair and brains and trample on their blood and mud. If I am the one who cannot be approached by darkness, I will follow the words of the Lord and destroy you. In an instant, the hands in Wu Ming's heart turned and pointed to the 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock. However, the 2 stone plates in the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock continued to light up and didn't go out. At this moment, Wu Ming activated 4 avatars. The dark red shadow of a small giant wrapped around Wu Ming's body. Wu Ming, who entered the state of lightning speed, instantly moved in front of Susanoo. Try this move of mine. Susanoo shouted. The storm gathered around him instantly burst toward Wu Ming. The storm comparable to a super typhoon instantly struck in front of Wu Ming. If Salvatore, who was blessed with the defense authority, was hit by this blow, he would probably be disabled. But the storm in the opposite direction of this storm was released by Wu Ming. The storm was offset when the forward rotation met the reverse rotation. All the evildoers be afraid of my power. Now I will get the majesty of 10 mountains, the power of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 giant dragons. The majestic me will raise the mark of a fierce dragon. Lightning, lightning, lightning. I am the conqueror who can defeat thousands with white, thousands with thousands, and tens of thousands with tens of thousands. Now please shine brightly for me, who is standing on the side of justice, and give me divine power. 2 more power stone plates lit up. At this moment, half of the small stone plate in Wu Ming's heart lit up. The giant phantom turned into a giant dragon phantom with countless thunder and lightning entwined on it. Then the dragon claw full of annihilation, accompanied by countless thunder and storm, attacked Susanoo. Boom. Chapter 220. Wu Ming left secluded world, leaving behind Susanoo, who was in a mess. The result was obvious. Susanoo's life was easily lost. After all, Wu Ming had activated his 6th incarnation. Wu Ming didn't kill him. Although his character was quite bad, Susanoo still indirectly helped Wu Ming. If it weren't for him, Huina wouldn't come to Wu Ming's side, and Wu Ming wouldn't go to Yushi, and he wouldn't know about the last king. Secondly, his purpose was to prevent the resurrection of the last king. No matter what the reason was, the result was always good. Therefore Wu Ming spared Susanoo's life. Regarding the problem of multiple incarnations, Wu Ming recently discovered that as long as a large amount of magical power was stored in the stone plate, even if the pointer was cancelled, the incarnations wouldn't fail. As a result, Wu Ming developed a true overlapping of incarnations, unlike the double incarnations in the long and short pointer state. That was the complete control without side effects. Noble Phantasm, 12 incarnations, God's killer. Each incarnation was comparable to a noble phantasm, and noble phantasm was the key to turning defeat into victory. Wu Ming, who activated 6 noble phantasms, was too much of a bug, even Susanoo's life couldn't withstand it. Annihilation broke all of Susanoo's defenses, Titan provided power so that every blow could hurt Susanoo's life, Thunder God and Storm provided restraining effect, too much wind and lightning would break steel, Phoenix provided speed, so that Susanoo couldn't escape, and Dragon Seed provided mutual restraint. Without Dragon Snake, Steel Hero was useless. Steel Hero obtained the weapon to defeat Dragon Snake from Mother Earth Dragon Snake, which also meant that Dragon Snake could devour steel. Combined with the above, Wu Ming easily subdued Susanoo's life. After all, the god of disobedience was just a god's incarnation, and its ability was naturally inferior to a real god. It could only be said that the power of Noble Phantasm was too powerful, and the power it exerted was comparable to the power of a real god, which Wu Ming experienced in Uruk. Then, after defeating Susanoo's life, Wu Ming left after Susanoo said, "It seems that I have to live in seclusion." Although Susanoo would use some tricks and the like, Wu Ming didn't care. After all, his strength was here, who would be afraid of a trick. After leaving Yushi, he contacted Sebastian, who was sent by Wu Ming to meet Satya. "How is it, Sebastian, did you successfully meet Satya?" "I'm really sorry, Lord Wu Ming. Satya seems to have been targeted by America's Godslayer. The other party's power is a little difficult to deal with, so Satya hasn't met up with me for the time being." Sebastian's old but strong voice sounded. "America's Godslayer? That should be John Pluto Smith. He's a complete Shinibu. I reckon that Satya's cruel methods attracted him," Wu Ming said. "Forget it. There's no rush now. Help Satya escape from the Godslayer first. Bring Dragon Snake over when it's safe." Yes, Lord Wuming. Then Wuming cut off the communication. John Pluto Smith? It's unfortunate that Zaisha ran into this superhero. After all, he was an existence that took it as his duty to fight criminals and evil. At this moment, a black wind blew, and an owl flew over and landed on Wuming's shoulder. My compatriot, I've already unlocked the seal on Gorgon's stone. I have to say that you do have unique insights in this area. Even I, the goddess of wisdom, am impressed by this sealing technique. Wuming said as he walked slowly. You're flattering me. I'm just using the knowledge that Master taught me. After all, this was also the strength of the Dragon of Origin's body. I've prepared a battle stage for you and me. Tonight at midnight, I'll be waiting for you at the Invisible Island in the Pacific Ocean. With that, the owl flew away. Invisible Island. Wuming stopped and pondered. The Invisible Island was where the three Gorgon sisters lived. Legend had it that it was filled with stone statues of various people. They had overestimated themselves and came to crusade against Medusa, but they were petrified by Medusa. Logically speaking, the Invisible Island should no longer exist. However, since Athena said so, it meant that she had summoned the place where the three Gorgon sisters lived. As expected of the goddess of Medusa, Athena, and Medea. The Invisible Island. With that, Wuming walked toward the villa. Just as he approached the villa, Wuming discovered a large hole in the wall of the villa. Attack. Wuming shook his head and denied this possibility. Then Wuming walked into the villa and saw Erica drinking afternoon tea. Where are the others? Also, Erica, what's with the hole in the villa? Wuming asked curiously. Her Highness Alice went back to her room to rest due to her exhaustion. Yoli went home to take care of her sister. Lily sent her off. As for Hui Na from the clear autumn courtyard, she should be cultivating now. Then Erica took a sip of tea. As for the hole, it wasn't your good friend's doing. Luohao. After Erica's explanation, Wuming learned the origin of the hole. When Luohao woke up and found herself lying in bed, she could not help but feel annoyed that she had lost to Wuming. Then she changed her clothes and opened the door. Lu Yinghua was kneeling on the ground, waiting for Luohao to wake up. Then, for some unknown reason, Luohao gave Lu Yinghua a palm strike, and a large hole appeared in the villa. According to Erica, it might have been because she was unhappy. Wuming blushed with shame. So, you're just sitting here doing nothing. Wuming sat on the sofa and commented on Erica. What do you mean by doing nothing? Afternoon tea is also a compulsory course. Then Erica looked at Wuming, who was unscathed but slightly dirty, and asked, Did you have a fight with Susanu's man? Yeah, that's right. We had a fight. Wuming casually picked up a piece of pastry and stuffed it into his mouth. If I'm not mistaken, the History Redaction Committee should have been subdued by Sayako Miyazaki. So easy? Erica was in disbelief. After all, the History Redaction Committee was the official magic association of Japan. How could it be subdued so easily, even if the other party was a god slayer? After all, the History Redaction Committee has always been controlled by Susanu's man. Now that I defeated Susanu's man and he's officially going into seclusion, the higher-ups of the History Redaction Committee can't wait to find a backer. Wuming leaned on the sofa and said casually. Erica shrugged uninterestedly. I thought I would be able to F***ck some disobedient magician. It's a good chance to exercise my body. Erica stretched and her body was exposed. Wuming glanced casually, then turned his head and said, By the way, is your relationship with Qingqiu Courtyard's Hui Na still not good? Chapter 221. Wuming was a little concerned. After all, when Erica mentioned names, only Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard called her by her surname, while the others called her by her first name. You can't say that we're not on good terms. It's her fault for always wanting to defeat me, the first wife, to obtain the position of first wife. Her Highness Alice is clearly the first wife. Erica waved her hand helplessly. Back then, when Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard first came to Wuming's side as an attendant, she immediately challenged Erica to a duel in order to be the first wife. Although Wuming, Erica, and the others denied the so-called first wife, whenever something happened, as long as Wuming was not around, the girls would follow Erica's lead. This inevitably made Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard and Erica somewhat hostile. It was not until Alice came to Japan that Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard slowed down her attacks on Erica. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that Alice was the real first wife. What's going on? Wuming raised an eyebrow. Forget it. After all, with Her Highness Alice, our relationship has improved quite a bit. Let Her Highness Alice help us with the title of First Wife. Erica smiled slyly. If Alice were here, she would definitely accept it. Not only because of the relationship between Wu Ming and Alice, but also because of Alice's bad taste. Wu Ming believed that she would accept it. Forget it. I have something to tell you. Wu Ming shook his head and stopped thinking about those messy things. His expression became serious. I've returned the Gorgon stone to Athena. She and I have a duel on the invisible island in the Pacific Ocean tonight. Erica, who was drinking black tea, could not help but spit it out. What did you say? Erica looked at Wu Ming rather helplessly. I knew that God's layers are troublesome existences. Erica sighed. Wu Ming felt a little embarrassed. After all, he had secretly given the item that caused the starless night, which caused the end of the world, to the enemy. Although Wu Ming and Athena were both friends and foes, it was true. Well, don't say that. Athena's existence is also a problem, so I'm prepared to defeat her in one go. After all, Athena was the goddess of wisdom. Her most terrifying thing was not her power, but her wisdom. I'm guessing that you won't kill Athena. Erica looked at Wu Ming suspiciously. How's that? This made Erica feel a little awkward. After all, Wu Ming and Athena made a bet that the loser would become the subordinate god of the winner because he didn't want to kill Athena. If Silent Wonder won, not only would they be able to restrict Athena, but they would also be able to draw Athena's strength to their side. Why not? After all, you're especially gentle to women, my Lord Wang. But even so, Erica didn't object. After all, logically speaking, Wu Ming wasn't the kind of person who would lay his hands on someone he had a good relationship with. Do you still need to tell the others? Erica asked. Forget about that. Thinking of Liliana's righteous teachings and Wanli Guyoli's furious teachings, Wu Ming felt that it was better not to tell them. I feel like you're a heartless man who cheats on his wife and has a mistress, Erica teased. Whatever you say. Wu Ming had already given up. A moment later, Wu Ming left. In the villa, Wu Ming told Erica to say that he had not returned from the hidden world to cover it up. Using magic power to fly, Wu Ming arrived at a certain part of the Pacific Ocean. The magic power here was especially abundant, and it was filled with a dark aura. As he flew down, a small island appeared before Wu Ming's eyes. The sky, which had not yet darkened, was now completely dark due to some unknown factor. Wu Ming landed on the island and looked around at this terrifying island. The island was filled with stone statues. They were the legendary heroes who had been petrified by Medusa's petrifying demon eye. Each stone statue was different in shape, but they had one thing in common, which was that the stone statues' faces were filled with fear. If a person with a weak state of mind were to come here, it was very likely that they would be affected by the aura emitted by these stone statues filled with terror. You really have a bad taste, Athena, Wu Ming said to the surroundings. They only have themselves to blame. A beautiful female voice similar to Athena's sounded. Black fog appeared in front of Wu Ming, and a beautiful girl walked out of it. The girl had waist-length hair and wore a straw hoop on her head. She wore a Greek-style white off-the-shoulder dress. Her golden snake eyes were dazzling, and her beautiful face was unknowingly mesmerizing. In addition to that, a terrifying and powerful aura came from the girl. That aura was far more threatening than Susanu's. Even Wu Ming didn't have such a terrifying aura. Obviously, that was Athena, the goddess of the earth, who had restored her Trinity true form. Is this your original appearance? That lowly is more interesting. Wu Ming touched his chin and carefully looked at Athena. Oh, you really dare to say that, Vilo there answered. For the sake of being a snake, if you take the initiative to surrender, I can let you become my companion instead of a lowly subordinate god. As she spoke, Athena's aura was instantly released, and the monstrous aura of a queen gushed out. You're no longer the three-eyed lowly you used to be. Although you're quite interesting in your current queen form, I still prefer the three-eyed lowly you. Wu Ming didn't answer Athena's question. Instead he commented on her. Athena's snake-like eyes glowed brightly. It seems that you refuse. Isn't it obvious? Furthermore, I am an existence that once sat on the throne. Surrendering without a fight is not in line with my character. As he spoke, Wu Ming bared his teeth and revealed an unruly smile. Originally, as a non-human, Wu Ming had some of the instincts of a beast. Now that Wu Ming had the physique of a god slayer, those instincts were even more obvious. God slayers were a group of warlike existences, and they could become stronger as long as they fought. They would adapt to their abilities in battle, and in the end, their authority would become like the instincts of wild beasts, able to do as they pleased. Then let's fulfill the agreement of that day. The loser will listen to the winner's arrangement. Athena took out a large dragon snake scythe from the black mist behind her. That's what I wanted. Wuming also took out a gun from the golden ripples. After that, Athena and Wuming moved at the same time. The black sickle, which represented death, and the white holy spear, which represented life, clashed for the first and last time. Chapter 222. In the Pacific Ocean, the terrifying island that had just appeared recently, death and life were fighting against each other. Whoosh! Athena, who was holding a scythe, swung it fiercely toward Wuming, and several black blades of death shot toward Wuming. Bang! 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 Silent, who was holding the spear of the world tree Yggdrasil, used the tip of the spear, which was filled with life elements, to deflect the black blades. Then Wuming held Yggdrasil in a reverse grip and placed it on his shoulder. Yggdrasil. With the incomplete release of the noble phantasm, the white holy spear turned into a green beam of light full of life and burst toward Athena. Athena waved her hand, and a few ferocious-looking giant rock snakes rose from the ground and blocked Athena's path. Hiss hiss hiss. Several giant snakes roared and rushed toward the green light beams. Bang! 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 After breaking through several giant snakes, the energy of the noble phantasm weakened, and it was bitten by a giant snake behind a large number of stones. After all, it was an incomplete noble phantasm. It was used by Wuming to test the waters. Even if it was broken, Wuming was not annoyed. Wuming waved his hand, and Yggdrasil, which was bitten by the giant snake, began to vibrate violently in the snake's mouth. Bang! The sound of glass breaking came from the giant snake's mouth, and its head exploded. Yggdrasil returned to Wuming's hand and was firmly grasped by Wuming. At this time the sound of something breaking through the air came. Whoosh! Wuming hurriedly dodged a sharp arrow. Wuming looked at the source of the arrow. Athena was holding a quaint oak bough in her hand, aiming at Wuming. As he pulled the string, 2 arrows appeared on the oak bough. Whoosh! 2 more arrows flew toward Wuming. Wuming raised his hand and Yggdrasil bounced the 2 arrows away. Immediately afterward, Wuming jumped up in an instant, and a huge snake appeared in Wuming's position. Then the giant snake, which was a few times larger than the others, rushed toward Wuming. Noble and powerful, wise and kind, I will become a miracle and lead the world to the dawn. Wuming's stone plate lit up, and the long pointer pointed at 12 o'clock, and the invisible magic flame attached to Wuming's body. Heaven fire. The holy white flame turned in a spiral shape and shot toward the giant rock snake. Whoosh! Like gasoline being ignited by flames, the giant rock snake was instantly infected by the white flames and burned. Hiss! Then the giant rock snake screamed as it was burned to ashes by the flames. At this time Wuming turned around. Clang! Wuming's white holy lance Yggdrasil collided with the black dragon snake's scythe, and sparks splashed. It was Athena who wanted to sneak attack Wuming but was discovered. As expected of the goddess of wisdom and war. She's really something. Wuming smiled happily. It's just a small trick in front of you. Sure enough, I like you more and more. Right now, her intention was to have Wuming submit to Athena, full of the aura of a queen. I don't have the habit of being under others. You'd better be obedient and be my subordinate god. Wuming and Athena suddenly exerted their strength and collided with each other. Wuming stretched out his hand and countless golden ripples appeared, and golden chains burst out from it. The target was Athena. Athena hurriedly retreated, and Enkidu hurriedly wrapped around Athena. Athena, who was in the air, constantly dodged and avoided the golden chains. While Athena was still dodging the chains, Wuming returned Enkidu to Enkidu. Wuming raised his spear and attacked. Countless green energy emerged from Yggdrasil and formed green vines. Together with Wuming's hand, the vines wrapped around Yggdrasil, and a huge green vine spear wrapped around Wuming's hand appeared. Athena was indeed the goddess of wisdom. She was very relaxed when dodging Enkidu's attack. Athena looked at Wuming and stared at Wuming. Then Athena's golden snake eyes turned gray and emitted a terrifying magic power. Wuming could clearly feel that his speed had slowed down, and his legs were gradually losing feeling. Then Athena looked at him again. Glancing at his petrified feet, Wuming instantly released his magic power, and the petrified parts on Wuming's body began to fall off. The grayish-black snake eyes scanned Enkidu. Enkidu, who was in charge of Enkidu, instantly sensed the abnormality of Enkidu. Lord Wuming, the opponent is using the demon eye of petrification, Enkidu said to Wuming. Wu-ming understood, and Enkidu entered the golden ripples and was put away by Wu-ming. Then Wu-ming chanted a new language. Lightning, lightning, lightning. I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with white, 10,000 with 1,000 and 10,000 with 10,000. Now for me who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. I am the one who will crush all enemies and enmity between humans and demons. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you curses. Evil people will not be able to hit me. The long and short needles pointed at the 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock respectively, and the thunder god and phoenix avatars activated one after another. Wu-ming, who had turned into an invisible lightning bolt, was not affected by Athena's demon eye of petrification. Wu-ming was so fast that Athena did not even have time to react, and he instantly appeared beside her. Wu-ming turned into a human and stabbed at Athena. As if hit by a meteorite, Athena fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a large amount of dust. As the dust settled, Wu-ming, who was holding a huge vine spear, looked at the large crater that was gradually healing after being destroyed. Your island is quite sturdy. It can even heal itself, Wu-ming said in surprise. It's useless. As long as this invisible island is not completely destroyed, it can automatically heal itself. Just like me, the mother goddess of the underworld and death, I have an incomparably strong regenerative ability and vitality. Even if I am injured, I can quickly recover. Athena looked at Wu-ming with a teasing smile. Is that so? Wu-ming's lips curled up as he continued. Then I will destroy you along with this island. He cancelled the thunder god and phoenix avatars, and the long and short needles pointed at the 11 o'clock direction. For victory, come to me quickly. Undying sun, please bestow upon me a shining steed. Horses with enough intelligence, bring me the light wheel that symbolizes your master. Nay. Chapter 223. Accompanied by a loud neigh, the sky that was originally dark and without a trace of light suddenly cleared up. A beautiful white horse, accompanied by a huge sun, descended from the sky. Nay. My old enemy, the white horse of the sun. Athena frowned as she looked at the fireball that was comparable to a real sun with a sour expression. Wu-ming held Yggdrasil with one arm raised high and the other arm holding the giant Yggdrasil, then looked at Athena. So, can you withstand my double incarnation of the sun, Athena? As he spoke, Wu-ming's raised hand abruptly fell down. Nay. The white steed charged down without any fancy decorations. Athena looked at Wu-ming, who was standing motionless in the distance. She gave up on attacking and condensed her mana into a shield. The Aegis Shield. Wu-ming read out the name of the shield. Legend has it that the Aegis Shield was made by Hephaestus, the god of fire in Greek mythology. One was held by Zeus and the other was held by Athena. The one held by Zeus was called Aegis. The Aegis Shield had the ability to generate storms. When it was placed in the sky would become dark, and when it was picked up, the sky would become clear again. It was said that this shield had a super high level of defense that even Zeus' powerful weapon couldn't damage. The Aegis shield held by Athena was called Aegis because the shield was inlaid with Medusa's head. Legend has it that Perseus, with the help of Athena and Hermes, killed Medusa. After that, Perseus cut off Medusa's head. Although Medusa was dead, the power of petrification in her eye of petrification did not disappear. After knowing that, Perseus offered Medusa's head to Athena, and then Athena inlaid Medusa's head on her shield. That was the origin of Aegis' shield. Athena's shield was different from Zeus' shield. Athena's shield only had the defense of Zeus' shield, but it did not have the ability to summon storms. However, because it was embedded with the Medusa's head, when the Medusa's head opened its eyes, it became a magic shield that would petrify anyone it faced. Meanwhile, all the weapons and items that the god of disobedience used were god relics that the god of disobedience had imitated. To put it simply, they were not real weapons, armor, and items that were mentioned in myths. Instead, they were made of magic, which was very similar to a servant. Even so, it was still a clone of the god of disobedience's artifact, so it shouldn't be underestimated. After all, it still had some of the original artifact's abilities. Just a little sun fall. Athena held the Aegis shield in both hands and welcomed the arrival of the incarnation of the sun. The eye of Medusa on the Aegis shield opened, and the gray light shone on the white horse. However, the white horse was still descending at its original speed. The incarnation of the sun was a new authority after the fusion of Waleslana's white horse and Mecker's god king's divinity. Not only was it more powerful than the previous white horse, but it was also strengthened by authority and double incarnation. This authority could be said to be one of Wuming's trump cards. In order to deal with the immortal mother goddess, Wuming directly activated this incarnation. After all, it was Wuming's first time using this incarnation, so he might not be able to control it well. The main reason was that basically no one could force Wuming to use this trump card, so Wuming had never used it before. Now, in order to defeat Athena, Wuming chose to activate this incarnation. Fortunately, Athena chose to fight in the Pacific Ocean, so there was no need to worry about the ordinary people around her being affected. This was also one of the reasons why Wuming came without much preparation. Rumble. The white horse crashed into Athena, who was holding the Aegis shield, and the violent explosion directly covered the entire invisible island. At this moment, the entire invisible island was completely destroyed. Wuming floated in the sky, looking at the real sea of fire below. After all, the flames brought by the incarnation of the sun were inextinguishable, and would only be extinguished when Wuming's incarnation was extinguished. The sea was violently fluctuating because of the sun summoned by Wuming, and a large amount of white fog was constantly rising. After that, Wuming carefully searched. At this moment, Wuming suddenly discovered a petite lowly floating quietly above the sea of fire. The surrounding flames were scorching her, causing her to frown the entire time. In the competition between the sun and Mother Earth, Wuming's son won. In fact, Wuming didn't have any suspense about it. He couldn't imagine how powerful Wuming's incarnation could be. Perhaps the adult Wuming could handle it. After all, the growth of the root dragon's strength was not by leaps and bounds, but by a qualitative change. Of course, he would have to wait until he reached adulthood. Wuming shook his head, flew down, and hugged the unconscious and naked Athena, who was still floating on the sea. After that, he fished out the Gorgon stone that was about to sink to the bottom of the sea. After all, the Gorgon stone that had been unsealed could not be simply left around. It was a high-level god relic that represented the divinity of the mother goddess, and it might even attract disobedient gods. Looking at the naked Athena, Wuming looked away awkwardly. Wuming took out a piece of white cloth from the golden ripples of Dragonist and put it on Athena. Because Athena had the Aegis shield, and Wuming deliberately reduced the lethality of the sun after breaking Athena's shield, Athena didn't die directly. However, even if she died, Athena still had the authority to resurrect. In fact, if Athena didn't take Wuming's son head-on, she wouldn't have failed here. After all, they were enemies, so naturally she couldn't give in. In addition, Wuming did not continue to attack, so Athena chose to take it head-on. The goddess of wisdom should have chosen not to fight in the face of the situation just now, but in the end, she still lost to her own willfulness. Looking at the young Athena in his arms, Wuming smiled helplessly and shook his head. Because the sun's incarnation directly melted the invisible island, and they were at sea, Wuming didn't need to do any post-battle maintenance. With a simple wave of his hand, Wuming dispelled the undying flame and flew away with Athena, who was only draped in a white cloth. The sea level was still in a state of high temperature, constantly fluctuating. Chapter 224. Wuming returned to the outside of the villa. As soon as he landed, Wuming noticed several cold gazes. When he turned around, Erica, Liliana, Qingxiu Courtyard Huina, Wanli Guyoli, and Alice were all looking at Wuming. However, Erica and Alice's gazes were filled with joy, Qingxiu Courtyard Huina's gaze was somewhat worried, and Wanli Guyoli and Liliana's gazes were filled with anger. I heard that Lord Wuming returned the Gorgon stone to Lady Athena. Wanli Guyoli's face was gloomy. He also very kindly helped Lady Athena recover her strength. Liliana frowned. And Lord Wuming and Lady Athena made a bet, Wanli Guyoli continued with a gloomy face. And it's a bet where the loser will be the winner's subordinate god. Liliana was still frowning. Lord Wuming, do you know that this is an extremely dangerous bet? Looking up, Wanli Guyoli looked at Wuming. It's fine if it's Erica, but you didn't even bring me your knight. Liliana looked at Wuming with dissatisfaction. Wanli Guyoli and Liliana stared at Wuming. However, as if he was already used to it, Wuming walked straight to the villa. Then Wuming said, "Let's go in first. It's cold outside." Everyone sat on the sofa. Then Wuming arranged for Athena to stay in an empty room and walked out. Sitting on the sofa, Wuming looked at the girls. By the way, how did you know? Wuming glanced at Erica, wondering if she was the one who revealed the news. Erica smiled slyly. It just spread around the world that the Eastern Hemisphere entered a polar day in a few minutes, Wanli Yoli said. We quickly gathered because we were worried that something might happen, but Erica claimed that it was your doing, Huina of the Blue Autumn Yard said. Come to think of it, Welslana has the power to summon the sun. Plus you have disappeared. No matter how you look at it, it has something to do with you. Alice smiled. I can't hide it anymore. After all, it's already so obvious. Erica pretended to wave her hand helplessly. Only then did Wuming realize that he had indeed gone a little overboard just now. Wuming was probably affected by the Godslayer's constitution. He would sometimes forget some things when he was fighting. At that time, Wuming only wanted to get rid of Athena in one breath, so he released the incarnation of the sun. Now the official history committee is busy trying to eliminate the panic of the people. And as a knight, I can't even serve my master when he's fighting. What a failure, Liliana said with some regret. Don't force yourself, Lily. The battle between Wuming and Athena, who has recovered the true form of Mother Earth, isn't something we can participate in. For example, if we were present when Wuming summoned the sun just now, we would definitely drag Wuming down. Also, you have to have confidence in your master, Lily. Alice said leisurely. This was also why Erica neither objected to Wuming going to the invisible island alone, nor did she blame Wuming for challenging Athena without permission. Liliana nodded slightly. Of course, Liliana was aware of this. However, her pride as a knight wouldn't allow her to watch her master go to the battlefield alone. Let's not talk about this for now. That was Lady Athena just now, right? Is it really okay for Lord Wuming to bring Lady Athena back? That's Lady Athena of Mother Earth. Wanli Yoli looked at Wuming with some disappointment and scolded him fiercely. Don't worry, Yoli. The gods naturally abide by the rules. Since Athena was defeated by me, she definitely won't mess around, Wuming explained. Wuming thought of something and then said with a smile. And your attitude now is very impolite. Wanli Yoli was shocked and quickly apologized. Please punish only me, your majesty. Don't implicate others. Looking at Wanli Yoli, who instantly sat down, Wuming laughed. Ha 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 ha, huh? Wanli Yoli looked at Wuming in confusion. Erica couldn't stand it anymore and helped Wanli Yoli up. Get up, Yoli. Wuming is joking with you. Really, after being together for so long, you still don't understand his character. Well, Lord Wuming sometimes has a bad taste. Alice nodded and agreed. Don't you think about yourself first when talking about others' bad taste, Alice? Wuming stopped laughing and looked at Alice with a, you still have the nerve to talk about others look. Thank you for the compliment, Lord Wuming. Alice looked into Wuming's eyes and nodded with a smile. Well, everyone go to sleep. Although a lot of things have happened just now, it's over. Wuming clapped his hands and said. All the girls nodded and then returned to their rooms. It was just a pity that the official history committee was still cleaning up the mess caused by Wuming. After all, it was caused by their new king. Even if they didn't sleep, they had to deal with it. Then Wuming came to Athena's room. You should be awake, Athena. Wuming sat on Athena's bed and looked at the sleeping Loli in front of him. The petite Athena's eyes flew open and she sat up. I was afraid that I would disturb you flirting with your girls, so I continued to pretend to be asleep. Hearing this voice and looking at the unconscious Athena, Wuming smiled and touched Athena's head. Then I must thank you, my subordinate god. Hey. Athena was quite unhappy, but because of the bet, she didn't resist Wuming's touch. Have you really decided to release the last king? Athena's snake eyes stared straight at Wuming. Wuming nodded solemnly. Now you should know that I'm a god from another world. Athena nodded. I have my own purpose in coming to this world. Sir, your purpose has basically been achieved. Wuming's noble phantasm, the 12 incarnations, could be said to be extremely powerful. With the dependent incarnation, Wuming's second authority, Ling Zhuzi, was basically useless. Ling Zhuzi, throw out the spirit orb obtained from killing Neza, the god of steel. The spirit orb will transform into Neza and provide combat power for the tamed demon. Since I am indebted here and promised Alice to solve the problem of the last king, I will definitely solve it. Even if you die? Athena asked. Even if I die, I will not die. Wuming answered firmly. You really are a man with a divine artifact. Athena then lay down. I'm a little tired. As my main god, shouldn't you hug me to sleep? Athena looked straight at Wuming. Really, so many requests? If I didn't know better, I would have thought that I was your subordinate god. However, Wuming lay down obediently and hugged Athena. Athena leaned into Wuming's arms and rubbed against him. Just be a pillow. With this thought, Wuming and Athena fell asleep together. Chapter 225. At night somewhere in Japan. Guinevere sat in the arms of Lancelot, who was riding a white horse. He held the arrowhead disc and closed his eyes. Faint magic particles floated around Guinevere. It could be seen that Guinevere was performing a magic trick. As if he had found something, Guinevere opened his eyes. However, the magical thing was that there was a universe in Guinevere's eyes. It was a planet in the universe, Earth. In Earth's orbit, right above Japan, a platform full of magic floated and rotated with Earth. Found it? Guinevere's voice was a little excited. It seems that even if you are demoted to a god ancestor, your astral vision is still powerful, Lancelot commented. Guinevere shook his head excitedly. If it weren't for the fight between Lord Wuming and Lord Athena, the strongest steel wouldn't have awakened, and I wouldn't have been able to find the last king. After all, this was also one of Wuming's ideas. In Japan, the reason why Susanoo and a group of people from the hidden world lured the great sage, Heaven's Equal here, was to eliminate the dragon and destroy the snake. This was to prevent the dragon and snake attributes from attracting the last king and breaking the seal of the last king. If it were 200 or 300 years ago, they wouldn't have to be so careful. However, they couldn't do it now. As long as there was another demon king, God Slayer, on the ground, the seal of the last king would weaken. Now that there were 7 God Slayers, the seal of the last king could be said to be very loose. If it weren't for the fact that Wuming became a God Slayer as the god of disobedience, the last king would have awakened long ago. As Wuming said before, if there was another God Slayer now, the last king would definitely awaken. What Wuming, Guinevere, and Lancelot had discussed in the grove was Wuming's plan. They wanted to use the dragon and snake attributes to stimulate the last king's awakening and make him appear directly. However, the result was a failure. Wuming had long thought of this element of the dragon-snake attribute stimulation, so he had sent Xianxia to America. However, plans could not keep up with changes. The battle between Wuming and Athena could also be considered as the stimulation of the dragon-snake attribute. After all, Athena was Mother Earth, and Wuming had the dual nature of steel and serpent. Especially during the battle with Athena, Wuming fully released the dragon-serpent attribute that he sealed after killing Neza. Wuming didn't think that 2 dragon serpents' aura and 1 God Slayer's aura couldn't awaken the last king. But in the end, the king did not appear. This was also the reason why Wuming used his trump card, the sun, right after the battle with Athena. He wanted to preserve his strength to deal with the last king, but the last king did not show up. As a last resort, Wuming contacted Guinevere and asked him to use spirit vision to find the place where the last king was sealed. Liliana, Wanli Yuri, and Alice, whose ancestors were god ancestors, all had extremely powerful spirit vision. Wuming didn't believe that Guinevere, a god ancestor who had fallen from Mother Earth, wouldn't have spirit vision. As a result, as Wuming expected, Guinevere really found the location of the last king. Although it's inappropriate to say this now, I still want to ask, have you really decided, my beloved daughter? Lancelot said in a puzzled tone. Guinevere fell into silence. Guinevere understood what Lancelot meant. Lancelot was asking if he was prepared for the master he served and his lover to kill each other. Whether it was the relationship between the hero and the demon king, the relationship between the strongest steel and the legendary dragon, or the relationship between different beliefs, Wuming and the last king were destined to not coexist peacefully. They must kill each other. This was something that Guinevere knew. Guinevere's eyes were full of confusion. Lancelot fell silent as well. There's an old Chinese saying that I think will suit you if I change it a little. Since ancient times, it's hard to have both loyalty and love. Perhaps it can be used on you now. Loyalty freed the last king and let him fight with the one he loved. There was a high possibility that the one he loved would be killed. Love gave up on freeing the last king and let the one he loved live in the world. After a long silence, Guinevere spoke. Then if I choose love, uncle, will you kill me? Guinevere asked a question that sounded like a big joke. Lancelot was the shadow of God who protected Guinevere, the god ancestor. Guinevere actually asked his own guardian if he would kill him. Was this not a big joke? However, Lancelot's answer was, I will kill thee, Lancelot said calmly. I will kill thee who is not loyal to my master. Even if you are my beloved daughter, I will still kill thee. However, Guinevere accepted it calmly as if he already knew the answer. Then, uncle, can you make a bet with Guinevere? Guinevere asked. Lancelot fell silent for a moment, then nodded his head that was wrapped in armor. Guinevere, who felt Lancelot's nod, smiled and continued. If the last king is defeated by the Villo, then you and I will pledge allegiance to the Villo and become the Villo's wife and knight. What do you think? To be honest, Lancelot was shaken. Having once followed Varro in this world, she knew that she once had the thought of, how great would it be if this person was my lord, but her loyalty to him did not waver. However, 1,000 years of longing could destroy a person, but it could also shake the heart of a disobedient god. I can't make the decision. I must ask my master. Lancelot's answer was neither yes nor no. However, Guinevere smiled. Of course we have to ask that lord first. Then Guinevere began to unseal the last king. Guinevere left Lancelot's embrace, dismounted from his horse and came to the ground. Then he took out a golden cup from nowhere. This was the holy grail of King Arthur that the Black Prince, one of the god slayers, and many other magicians were after. Guinevere placed the holy grail in front of him and knelt down with the arrowhead disc in his hand. Lancelot came to the side to protect Guinevere as well as to be on guard. Guinevere, the holy grail, and the arrowhead disc began to glow. The ritual to summon the last king had begun. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning shot towards Guinevere at a speed that shocked Lancelot. Uncle. Guinevere was shocked and shouted Lancelot's name. Just as the lightning was about to reach Guinevere, a spear stabbed at it. Chapter 226. The tip of the spear pierced the lightning. If it did not stop moving forward, the lightning would definitely be pierced by the tip of the spear. In an instant, the lightning made a sharp turn and deviated from Guinevere. Guinevere, who was somewhat worried, was relieved. Then the lightning stopped not far from Guinevere and turned into a human figure. The figure was wearing a luxurious suit, a bow tie and leather shoes. His black hair was parted in half, and it set off his handsome face. Lord Yarrick, you are really haunting me. Although Guinevere used honorifics, there was a trace of anger in his tone. That's right, the noble man standing in front of Guinevere and Lancelot was the British god slayer, Alexander Gerstein. His nickname was Black Prince Yarrick, who was even more famous than himself. It's a pity. This is the best chance I've had in the past. I'm afraid I won't have another chance in the future. Yarrick, who did not get what he wanted, was not upset. Instead, he calmly analyzed the situation. It's really hard on you, Lancelot. You have to protect such a useless guy, Yarrick mocked. However, Lancelot did not accept Yarrick's mockery. He was already holding a spear, fully armed and staring at Yarrick. The atmosphere began to become tense. As old rivals who had been fighting for some time, Guinevere and Lancelot naturally knew what each other wanted. That was the Holy Grail placed in front of Guinevere, which had magic power comparable to that of multiple god slayers. However, Guinevere would not hand over the Holy Grail no matter what. This was because the Holy Grail was an essential and important prop for the last king. The reason why Guinevere created the Holy Grail to store magic power was to replenish the magic power of the last king, who had exhausted his magic power because of his deep sleep. Just from this point alone, one could see the power of the last king. The amount of magic power required was comparable to the magic power of multiple god slayers combined. Except for Wu Ming among the 6 god slayers, whether it was the oldest, Woban, or the youngest, Salvatore, they had never worried about the lack of magic power. No matter what kind of battle it was, no matter how exhausting it was, none of the 6 god slayers except Wu Ming had ever said that they did not have enough mana. Based on this point alone, the last king's mana was comparable to the mana of multiple god slayers combined. This showed how powerful the last king was. The reason why Wu Ming was excluded was because, like the last king, Wu Ming had more magic power than the last king. After all, it was a root dragon. How could it lack mana? Of course, it could not be said that Wu Ming's magic power was infinite. It was just that under the condition of a rather large base, the addition of the condition that his magic power recovery speed was not slow, which led to the continuous release of magic power. It would take months or years for Wu Ming to recover his magic power, and that was under the premise that Wu Ming did not automatically recover his magic power. Coupled with Wu Ming's constant meditation over the years, the upper limit of his demonic power had also broken through. This was also why Wu Ming dared to compete with the last king. Now this country is the territory of that lord. Aren't you afraid of offending that lord? Guinevere warned Yarrick. You are talking about Villo there, answered the guy who calls himself Wu Ming. He became a god slayer as a disobedient. Even if he is not as warlike and brutal as other people of his race, I can't agree with him. After all, he is a disobedient god with the authority of other disobedient gods. Yarrick calmly stated his evaluation of Wuming. Guinevere frowned. After all, Yarrick was the person he admired, so he naturally could not bear to hear others talk about him. Lancelot was also a little upset. He clenched his spear with one hand and pointed it at Yarrick. If you still want to talk nonsense here, you'd better leave. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and kill you as the god of disobedience. After all, Lancelot was Guinevere's shadow of God. He could not leave Guinevere's vicinity. The only way was to appear as the god of disobedience. This would not only increase Lancelot's power, but also free him from the restriction of protecting Guinevere. This was why Lancelot said that if Guinevere chose to betray him, he would kill her. Looking at the furious Lancelot, Yarrick smiled. Although that person is also King Arthur, you and the god ancestor behind you are not Guinevere and Lancelot. Why are you so agitated? Yarrick mocked. A brilliant sword light shot toward Yarrick. Yarrick immediately dodged. Lancelot maintained his spear posture and looked at Yarrick. I'll ask you again. Are you leaving or not? What if I insist on staying? Then I'll have to appear as the god of disobedience and kill you. Lancelot and Yarrick stared at each other while Guinevere resumed the ritual of summoning the last king. We pray for the rebirth of the sword. Cut through the darkness of the apocalypse and kill the demon king of the apocalypse. The arrowhead disc in Guinevere's arms and the holy grail in front of him began to glow. The noble sword of swords, the blade of blades, the steel of steel. The arrowhead disc and the holy grail began to float into the sky at a speed that made Yarrick frown. They turned into a meteor and flew into the universe. Thou art the blade that annihilates the demon king. Thou art the holy light that saves the world. Slay all Rakshasas. Be the call of our allies. Return to the world. After the chanting, the arrowhead disc and the holy grail arrived on a platform in the universe. There was a sword in the center of the platform. If Wuming was here, he would definitely recognize it. It was a knight's greatsword that was almost identical to Artoria's, King Arthur's Excalibur in the lake, or even exactly the same. However, this holy sword looked extremely rusty, as if it could break at any moment. This was the sword of the legendary hero, the sword of salvation that killed the demon king. The arrowhead disc and the holy grail floated above the sword of salvation. In an instant, the arrowhead disc and the holy grail melted and turned into liquid that flowed into the sword of salvation. Beep beep beep. The sword of salvation began to emit white lightning. Beep 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 beep. The lightning became more and more intense until it spread to the entire platform. Then the platform exploded. Boom. Without the restriction of the platform, the sword of salvation began to fly downward. In the blink of an eye, the sword of salvation reached Earth and Guinevere's side. Boom. The landing of the sword of salvation stirred up a lot of dust. Guinevere, Lancelot, and Yarrick looked at the dust with serious expressions. Gradually the dust dissipated. A slightly tired young man walked out with the divine blade of salvation in his hand. Chapter 227. Rather than calling him a young man, it would be better to call him a severely exhausted youth. In the end, I still came to the surface. The last king spoke with a weary tone. Master. My lord. Guinevere knelt on one knee, and Lancelot also dismounted and knelt on the ground, lowering his head. Both of them were quite excited. Finally, the long-cherished wish they had been pursuing for thousands of years finally came true. The last king glanced at Guinevere and Lancelot. It turned out to be you. However, there was a hint of weariness in his eyes, but he instantly recovered his tiredness. Then the last king said to himself, Since I have come to the ground, I have to kill the gods' lairs as soon as possible. Otherwise the end will come. Then the last king looked at the Black Prince Yarrick with his tired eyes. In an instant, his tired eyes became extremely sharp. The last king raised the sword of salvation and slashed it gently, and a huge and fast lightning slashed toward Yarrick. Not good. Yarrick was shocked and hurriedly activated his lightning spark. That was the authority Yarrick often used, and it could be said to be his representative authority. This authority came from the fallen angel Ramir, who controlled lightning and illusions. It allowed Yarrick to enter the world of speed that no one could reach. It was a high-speed movement technique entwined with lightning, which allowed Yarrick to obtain the agility of a cat. Whoosh! The lightning released by the last king struck Yarrick, who had transformed into lightning. Yarrick used the lightning to flee into the distance. However, for some reason the last king didn't chase after Yarrick. Let's go. After saying that, the last king stepped away, walked past Guinevere and Lancelot and left. Guinevere and Lancelot waited for the last king to pass before standing up and following him. Not long after the three of them left, the ground nearby began to change. The surrounding flowers and trees began to wither rapidly, and the ground began to dry up as if it lost its life. In the distance, lightning fell on the ground and turned into a figure. Cough, cough. Yarrick half knelt on the ground with one hand covering his chest and the other covering the corner of his mouth. Blood flowed from his hand. The last king, huh? What a terrifying fellow. That's right, the last king had injured Yarrick, who had entered the seraphic speed state, with just a casual strike. Although Yarrick, who had entered seraphic speed, would lose his physical defense as a godslayer, the last king was able to injure Yarrick with a casual blow. This was enough to show how extraordinary the last king was. Also, that blow just grazed me. It's unbelievable. If it had hit me directly, I might have been dead, Yarrick analyzed calmly. Then it turned into a bolt of lightning and left Wuming's villa. Wuming and Athena, who were sleeping soundly, immediately woke up. Do you feel it? The aura of steel. Athena sat up and looked at Wuming. It seems that the last king has descended. No, it should be that Guinevere has successfully awakened him, Wuming said with certainty. Is this your plan as well? Athena asked. Of course not. This is Guinevere's backup plan. Wuming got off the bed and walked to the window. He looked at the unnatural situation outside and continued. The last king will unlock his seal when the number of demon kings on the ground increases. Until now, the seal of the last king has begun to move. But because I am not a pure godslayer, the last king has not completely awakened yet. Athena followed and looked outside with Wuming. Originally, I wanted to use the draconic snake attribute to stimulate the last king to appear, so I sent my subordinates to capture the draconic snakes. But because there were already draconic snakes, so you fought with me, right? Athena's snake eyes looked at Wuming. As expected of the goddess of wisdom. You understand immediately. Wuming smiled awkwardly. After all, Wuming was using Athena. I don't blame you. I admire the fact that you can use wisdom to achieve your goal. Athena smiled slyly after seeing Wuming's embarrassment. Wuming heaved a sigh of relief. So Athena was just teasing him. Shaking his head, Wuming left the window and walked to the door. Now that the last king has appeared, the chaos outside must be caused by the last king. After all, I am the mastermind, so I have to take the responsibility of defeating him. Wuming was right. The last king was also a god of disobedience. As a god of disobedience, he must have the ability to cause catastrophic changes to his surroundings. As mentioned before, if the god of war descended, the war would occur unnaturally. If the god of sea descended, the sea level would rise unnaturally. If the god of sun descended, the sun would become extraordinarily hot. As for what the last king would cause, Wuming didn't know. But Wuming believed that the disaster caused by the last king would not be weaker than the other gods of disobedience. Wuming believed that the disaster caused by the last king would be 100 times stronger than the other gods of disobedience. Stay here and rest. I have placed the Gorgon stone on the table. Remember not to run around. Gotcha. As the door closed, Athena was the only one left in the room. Athena silently walked to the table where the Gorgon stone was placed. Then the corners of her mouth curled up. Wuming walked out of the room and came to the hall. He saw the fully armed girls, including Alice, who was mentally exhausted from using spirit vision. After Wuming arrived, all the girls' eyes were focused on Wuming. Did everyone realize? Wuming asked. The girls nodded in agreement. It's the last king, right? Alice said. Wuming nodded. Most likely. Then Alice spoke. Just now, the Sage Council of Greenwich sent me a message. Just now, almost all the magic associations in the world sent a message to the Sage Council of Greenwich. The spirit veins under their jurisdiction have been disrupted to varying degrees. Mr. Gonzai just called me and said that the spirit veins in Japan have been completely disrupted, so he needs to ask Yuri and Huina for help, Erica said. Master Wuming, I have to hurry back to the United Kingdom. I need to go back and hold a ceremony to stabilize the spirit veins, Alice said. Then I'll ask Erica to send you off, Wuming said. No need, Master Wuming. I'm afraid Erica and Miss Liliana have to rush back to Italy too, Alice said with a smile. Wuming looked at Erica and Liliana. Because the two of us are rare prodigies in the Italian Magic Association, my uncle asked me to go back to Italy to stabilize the spirit veins. Grandpa told me the same. He also said that the king would definitely allow it. Liliana blushed. After all, as a knight, she could only stay in the rear and let her master go to the battlefield alone in the face of a great enemy. Liliana couldn't help but feel a little guilty. It's okay. You can go back too. However, I'll give you some protection first. Alice blushed when she heard Wu Ming's words. It's a normal protection, Wu Ming glanced at Alice and said with a smile. Then Wu Ming touched the girls' foreheads to give them the protection of super magic power. In this way you can squander it however you want, Wu Ming said. Then the girls left the villa. Then a guest came to the villa. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.